Chapter 3032. The three second-grade kings had all turned into corpses. Their corpses were on the verge of being destroyed. Zi Chen stepped forward and took their divine rings. Then he entered the world with his doppelganger. In the next moment, the world expanded for thousands of miles, and they disappeared in an instant. After doing this several times, Zi Chen came to a barren mountain range. He found a safe place to land and entered the world again. Monk and the others were looking at him. When they saw his doppelganger disappear, they knew that there was danger. However, they did not know what level of battle it was. When his doppelganger returned, they saw that his doppelganger had exhausted a lot of his energy and was severely injured. Their expressions turned solemn. Obviously, Zi Chen had encountered an extremely difficult battle. 3 second-grade kings have come. The Soul Tribe, Craftsman Tribe, and Soldier Tribe are all here. The pale Zi Chen said in a deep voice, "Our actions will become more difficult in the future." The second-grade kings of the 3 tribes had come. Obviously, they had attached great importance to Zi Chen. Under such circumstances, if they did not find a way to grow stronger, they would be in trouble. I'm about to comprehend the shield essence. When the time comes, I'll have a way to fight back, Monk said. His words were still filled with unwillingness. All along, he had been the absolute main force of the team. He took the initiative to attack and defend. However, in this world, he was useless. He could only rely on protection to survive. How could he accept this? Not far away, the yin-yang doppelganger and the golden body were comprehending the blade essence without rest. During this period, with the help of the Supreme Crystal, they were gradually gaining results. Wang Xian was comprehending the sword essence. She did not dare to relax. Zhang Haoyan was comprehending the few ancestral piercing steels. Once he comprehended it, his lethality would naturally be stronger. Previously, he had given the spear to Lei Ting. Now he was comprehending it. In addition, Li Ai was thinking of breaking a few more layers of seals on the heavenly needle. It might be of great use. Yi Qian was also improving the power of the world-annihilating sacred bell replica. This was given to Zi Chen by the real world-annihilating sacred bell. Later on, Zi Chen gave it to Yi Qian. Devil Ape and the others were thinking of ways to make themselves stronger. Wang Yiping of the divine race had killed many of the spiritlings. This news had caused quite a stir in the area. During this period of time, the soul race constantly sent out experts to attack. They even borrowed people from the other 2 races. It was obvious that they were paying more and more attention to Wang Yiping. Just then, a shocking piece of news was sent back. The 3 second-grade kings had all died in battle. Not even their corpses were left behind. As the news spread, there was an uproar in the city. Those natives who were originally high and mighty could no longer sit still. How is this possible? No one could believe this news. It was just a Wang Yiping who had not yet awakened. How could he kill 3 second-pin kings who were natural counters to him? When Kong Shua heard the news, he also couldn't believe it. The last time he brought Kong Mo back, he saw Zi Chen. At that time, the other party looked very ordinary. He even warned the other party. How did it become like this? Did he obtain some kind of opportunity, or was he that powerful? Kong Shua, the spiritlings are here. Take him to Mo. At this moment, an old voice came from outside the door. Kong Shua responded and hurried to the door to greet the spiritlings. The spiritlings were all second-grade kings. After seeing Kong Shua, the 2 of them walked to Kong Mo's residence. Kong Shua directly stated the purpose of his visit. Then he looked at Kong Mo and said, "Kong Mo, tell me everything you know." Kong Mo shook his head and said, "I don't know anything." "What?" Kong Shua looked at Kong Mo. "You came together. You don't know?" "Big brother saved my life. I won't say anything about him." Kong Mo raised his head and looked at Kong Shua. His eyes were full of determination. "Even if I die?" Kong Shua shouted in dissatisfaction. "Nonsense. That Zi Chen is our enemy. He is my big brother. He saved me. The grudges between the two of you are settled after he obtained the opportunity through you. If it weren't for Big Brother, I would have died long ago. How could I be where I am today? It's settled for you, but not for me. I owe Big Brother, and I will always owe him. Kong Shua was angry, but he couldn't do anything about Kong Mo. After returning, the family tested his talent. The result was so amazing that it shocked many elders. Kong Mo was now in high demand in the Kong clan. If it were someone else, how could they be so free? The Spiritas that came clearly knew of Kong Mo's identity. Seeing that Kong Shua wasn't able to ask anything of value, he smiled and said, "It seems that young Master Mo is someone who values relationships. Then, I won't disturb you any further." Kong Shua expressed his apology and sent him out. During this time, no one from the family appeared. Obviously, they approved of this matter, so he didn't say much. "Sir, there are no clues." The sole race member went back to report. His expression was very respectful. There was a person standing in front of him. This time when second-grade kings were killed and caused a huge commotion, the matter of besieging Zichin was handed over to this person. Merlot of the Perry family, whose full name was Perry Merlot, was known as the wisest person in the Spiritlings. Although his realm was second grade, no one dared to underestimate him. Yes. After hearing the other party's report, Perry Merlot faintly responded and said, "You've worked hard. Go and rest." Yes, tell Aikson at the door to follow my orders and find all the Spiritlings who have spirit eagles and are good at tracking. Before that, there's no need to deliberately inform me of the progress. Yes. The Spiritlings retreated. A moment later, a voice came from outside the door. "Sir, the Spirit Eagle sent a message." "Yes, bring it in." A servant, who clearly wasn't Wang, Epin, walked in. He held a jade slip in his hand. The jade slip released a faint light. Perry Merlot took the jade slip and poured his soul power into it. The next moment, the jade slip released a strong light, and the information inside appeared. In this information, there was a detailed record of Zichin. In addition, there were his friends, and even the relationship between Zichin and Kong Mo. It could be said that he only used an extremely short amount of time to find out everything about Zichin. After repeatedly reading the information recorded in the jade slip, Perry Merlot laughed. "It's very interesting. Since they can ignore the rules, they are naturally our enemies. This is a war." Chapter 3033. A faint smile appeared on Paramello's face. He waved his hand, and the messenger respectfully withdrew. When he received the news, he didn't immediately send people to find Zichin. Instead, he sent people to gather information. When he sent people to the craftsmen, he also sent people who had recruited many of the new god race forces to ask the divine generals who had come with them if they had a good relationship with Zichin and knew anything about him. In the end, he obtained information, so it was time for him to take action. Just as he had said before, the Spiritlings had already taken this matter seriously. Everyone was under his command, so this was a war. Compared to the previous battles over resource mines, this was a one-man battle, making a mountain out of a molehill. However, Paramello was keenly aware that this battle would be much more dangerous than the previous ones. At the very least, many people would die. He waved his hand, causing the space in front of him to distort and reveal a sand table. This sand table was a gigantic region. At this moment, there were many specks of light on the sand table, each of them representing a person. These specks of light formed a giant circle that enveloped the entire region. The specks of light were shrinking at a very slow pace. There were other specks of light on the sand table as well. These specks of light were all kinds of birds, as well as many soul beasts that were skilled at tracking. The sand table in front of him transformed into a ball of light. He held it in his hand, looked up at the sky outside, and said, "It's time to go." "My lord, it's bad. Many natives have appeared in this region." In the Netherworld, the leader of the Netherworld faction heard the panicked report from his subordinate. Black light swirled around his body as he opened his eyes. Many? Yes, many. He knew that this subordinate of his was usually extremely calm, but he hadn't expected him to be so flustered today. After he left the room, he sensed the panicked atmosphere in the netherworld. Only then did he realize that this matter was somewhat troublesome. The reason they were like this was because they weren't true members of the netherworld. At most, they could be considered logistics. In the face of an army of natives, they had no room to fight back. The leader quickly came to a space. At this moment, there were many crystal balls floating in the space. These crystal balls reflected the shadows of many natives. There was one every 10 miles or so there was no limit to how many of them there were. How could this be? Could it be that he wants to find the netherworld completely? Those were clearly craftsmen. They all had artifact refining domains and were extremely powerful. In this space, the other god kings in charge of monitoring this matter all felt extremely nervous. Don't panic. Even if they conduct a thorough search, they might not be able to find us. The leader said, I'll go and ask around. The netherworld had existed for many years and had caused many losses to the natives. During this period, there had naturally been many encirclements and annihilations, but none of them could do anything to the foundation of the netherworld. During this period of time, although the resistance was still going on, it was obviously much less than before. These natives shouldn't be making such a big fuss. He thought of a possibility, but found it inconceivable, so he decided to ask for some inside information through secret channels. After confirming the news, his face was filled with shock. One person killed 3 second-grade martial kings. How is this possible? This news caused him, the founder of the nether underworld, to feel incomparably shocked. It was simply unbelievable. He had seen Zichen before, and the other party was only Wang Yiping. He shouldn't be this strong. Could it be that the other party's doppelganger? After returning, he comforted everyone's emotions and at the same time exhorted. Send a message to the other netherworld members to reduce their activities. It's best if they all come back. Those who can't come back should all hide. Don't expose yourselves. After the truth gradually spread from the netherworld, everyone was stunned by the news. Since the establishment of the netherworld, the natives had never been mobilized on such a large scale. They didn't expect Zichen's Wang Yiping to do it. It had been a long time since the last battle. The injuries of Zichen and his doppelganger had all recovered. Last time, he killed 3 second-grade martial kings. He believed that the natives would definitely not let the matter rest. Therefore, after recovering from his injuries, Zichen appeared and prepared to leave. This was something that couldn't be helped. He couldn't stay in one place to avoid exposing his whereabouts. After leaving the world, Zichen walked forward, still aimlessly. Fortunately, this was a mountain range, so he couldn't see anyone else. At this time, Zichen didn't notice that a spiritual eagle had appeared in the sky above the clouds. Not only could spiritual eagles fly extremely high, but they could also hide their auras. At the same time, a soul beast appeared on a distant mountain peak. It looked at Zichen from afar, and its figure slowly disappeared. Paramello had just arrived in this area when he learned of Zichen's whereabouts. He smiled lightly and sat in the tent. Looking at the sand table in front of him, he said, "Send a team out. There must be a craftsman in the team." His order was immediately sent out. A team flew in the direction of Zichen, but they didn't find anything. New news quickly came. Zichen was already 10,000 miles away. Paramello sent out a third team, but this time they still didn't find anything. After 5 teams in a row failed, Paramello smiled faintly. It seems that he has some kind of large-scale teleportation method. He should be able to move several thousand miles at a time. Beside Paramello, a native asked, "Since we've already locked onto his range, should we shrink the encirclement?" Paramello shook his head. "The war has just begun. We can't use all our trump cards. Send the 6th team out." As the order was sent out, the 6th team appeared where Zichen had appeared, but they didn't see him. Just as they were about to turn around and return, a cold voice suddenly rang out. "How did you find me?" There was only one second-grade king in the team. The rest were first-grade kings. When they saw Zichen appear, some advanced to attack, some retreated to accumulate power, and some sent signals to the sky. Seeing that they had a limited division of labor, Zichen knew that he didn't have much time left, so he immediately used his killing move. He appeared with his doppelganger, and the battle ended quickly. After collecting the corpses on the ground, his doppelganger disappeared and he teleported away. After a while, several teams arrived. One of them descended and picked up a memory ball from an inconspicuous place on the ground. Not long after, this memory ball arrived at Paramello's location. Seeing Zichen's decisive killing in the memory ball and the doppelganger that looked like the Netherworld, his expression gradually became serious. The power of the Netherworld covers your entire body. No wonder you're so strong. It seems that I have to take you seriously. Chapter 30-34. Zichen did not know how his tracks were exposed. In short, every time he appeared recently, the indigenous people would come forward and attack him. Even after he teleported tens of thousands of miles away, this situation still persisted. It was as if countless natives had gathered in this area and filled every nook and cranny. Moreover, his world could not be hidden because the fluctuations were too strong and would be sensed by these indigenous people. Whoosh! His figure reappeared. In less than a quarter of an hour, Zichen sensed the indigenous people with his spiritual thoughts. These indigenous people were moving in a straight line with a very clear goal. Obviously, everyone's goal was accurate, and their speed was extremely fast. He was very sure that his tracks had been discovered, but he wasn't sure how he had been discovered. He released his spiritual thoughts to explore the surroundings, but he did not find anything unusual. After seeing the figures in front of him, Zichen's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he directly flew forward. He used the energy of the Thunder Body, and a battle broke out. In this battle, Zichen only killed one of Wang Yiping's indigenous people, and then he quickly left. "Heal where you are," a second-grade king from the craftsman clan in the team said in a deep voice. The people who were injured in the previous battle began to heal. Not far away, another new team arrived. It was because of them that Zichen had to leave. This new team did not continue to pursue Zichen. Instead, they stopped to protect the team that was healing. Their purpose was to continuously consume Zichen's energy and, at the same time, to ensure that the team would not suffer any more losses. As for why they did not send more powerful experts to kill him, but instead made such a big fuss, they did not know. They only knew that orders came from above, and everything had to be done according to the orders. There was also a second-grade king from the craftsman clan in the team. After waiting for a while, the previous minor injuries had all healed, and as for the serious injuries, they would be brought back to slowly heal. "Let's go!" The team, led by the two second-grade kings, began to return the way they came. At first, I couldn't believe that a first-grade king could kill a second-grade king without awakening. "Now that I've seen it with my own eyes, I have to believe it," said the second-grade king who had participated in the previous battle. "Of course, he's a great threat. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent Paramello here. However, we have already set up an inescapable net here. He won't be able to escape even if he grows wings." After a short exchange of words, the two teams separated and returned to their original areas to await orders. At that moment, there was a shadow following the two of them. During that time, the shadow heard every single word of their conversation. He was shadowless. Shadowless left after hearing the useful information and met up with Zichen in a mountain range. "We should be surrounded. This time, the natives are taking this matter very seriously." Shadowless sensed what he heard. After Zichen heard it, his expression became very serious. This time, it seemed that the aboriginals really wanted to kill him with great fanfare. But how did they discover him? Shadowless hadn't heard this yet, so he couldn't give an answer. Once again, Chen spread out his spiritual senses. Still, he did not discover that someone was secretly monitoring him. Not long after, another team arrived. "Their goal is to exhaust you," Shadowless said. At that moment, Chen was wondering why the other party's goal was so clear. It was as if they had seen him with their own eyes. Suddenly, a light flashed through his mind. He raised his head and looked at the sky. His spiritual senses couldn't detect anything unusual around him. What about above his head? He remembered that when he killed that second-rank king last time, the other party's sole beast was a spirit eagle. He ignored the natives who were rushing over and directly soared into the sky. As his body flew high into the sky, his vision gradually became clear. Then he saw a black shadow. He released his spiritual senses and found a black spirit eagle. At the same time, Chen released his spiritual senses and found more birds and spirit beasts. At that moment, Chen understood the reason. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. The other party was really generous. At that moment, the opponents had arrived. When they saw Chen standing in the sky, their expressions changed. He discovered our secret. Kill him quickly. Everyone rushed forward. During this time, a domain was opened. A great battle broke out. This domain, supported by Wang Yiping, soon shattered. In Chen's world, his clone looked at everyone and said, "The sky is now full of birds that can scout for information. As long as we are in this area, we will definitely be threatened." "Then what should we do now?" Monk asked. "Prepare to leave this area with your real body." This world was big enough. As long as he left this area, it was obviously impossible for these people to find him. Chen opened his world and began to choose long-distance teleportation. During this time, his figure kept flashing. Every time he appeared, his traces would be clearly transmitted to Paramello by the birds. Looking at Chen's moving traces on the sand table, Paramello smiled faintly and said, "Interesting. Let's see where he can run to." Chen's figure flashed again and again. After the last teleportation, his expression changed. This time, the teleportation did not appear naturally. Instead, it was forcefully stopped by a wave of energy. Chen looked ahead and saw that the space there was releasing all kinds of light. The light overlapped with each other, forming an absolute spatial seal. Below that space stood several figures. They were all from the craftsman race. Their realms varied, and there were often a few rank ones mixed in with a few rank twos. This kind of overlapping domain was very powerful. With Chen's strength, it was impossible for him to break through. At the same time, Chen also felt a strong sense of threat from ahead. It seemed that apart from these craftsmen, there were other existences that could threaten him, such as Wang Sanpin. Chen appeared and looked at them. Those people also sensed his presence, but they did not go forward. Instead, they quietly looked at him and walked forward at a constant speed. Seeing them move forward at a constant speed, Chen's expression immediately turned ugly when he saw that the barrier didn't show any flaws. His figure flashed again and appeared in another place. He found the same situation. After confirming it a few more times, he could not help but reveal a look of shock. If all the outer regions were like this, then how many powerhouses would the indigenous residents send this time? Wasn't this a little too much? However, this method was definitely effective. Once the defensive circle reached a certain range, he would have nowhere to run. When that time came, what awaited him would be death. He entered his world, and his expression became very unsightly. This was a dead end. Chapter 30-35. We've been surrounded. After entering his own world, Chen said this sentence. Surrounded. The others were stunned. What was going on? Chen said in a low voice. The surrounding area is filled with natives. There are rank 1 and rank 2, and I suspect there are even rank 3. Moreover, they're all from the craftsman tribe. Hearing Chen's words, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Their expressions changed drastically. To be able to surround Zichen, who could teleport, how big of a deal was that? Then what should we do? Kill our way out? Monk asked. It's hard to kill our way out now. Fortunately, this area is still large, giving us some time. Make use of this time to comprehend the true meaning. In just a few words, Shadowless's voice came from outside the world. Zichen, someone else is coming. Zichen left the world and continued to fight. Monk and the others made use of the time to comprehend the true meaning. From Zichen's expression, they could see that the natives were determined to eliminate them. If they could not kill their way out in time, death would be the only thing that awaited them. In one of the forces, the various Protoss were still busy. Some were preparing to mine, while others were organizing teams to hunt heavenly beasts. At this moment, a ray of light flew from the horizon. It was a figure, and it was moving at an extremely fast speed. At first, the figure did not attract much attention because it was just Wang Yiping. However, as the figure approached, their eyes fell on him, and their faces were filled with surprise. Behind the figure was a group of people. Not only were they natives, but there were also rank 2 powerhouses among them. Sensing this unusual pursuit, everyone stopped to watch curiously. What's going on? Why is a group of people chasing one person? Look, there are more in other places. Along with the exclamations, natives appeared in other places. They were filled with murderous intent as they charged toward Zichen. This scene shocked the divine race. They didn't know what was going on. A group of natives was actually chasing after a divine race expert. At this moment, all the members of the Shen clan who were part of this faction stepped forward. Even their leader showed up. He looked at the sky and frowned. In the next moment, his expression changed drastically, and his eyes were filled with shock. At this moment, the expressions of the other God clan members were almost exactly the same as his. With nowhere to run, the Protoss met the natives head-on. The moment the two sides came into contact, there were flashes of swords and sabers. They saw the indigenous people lose their vitality one after another and fall to the ground. You're courting death. Powerful rank, 2 auras were wreaking havoc. Powerhouses arrived one after another. The moment the god race clashed with Wang Erpin, a terrifying aura erupted in an instant. Wang Erpin was sent flying while the god race rank 1 flew forward. With a flash of saber light, the craftsman Wang Yiping's domain was cleaved apart, and the god transformed into a streak of light that shot into the distance. After fleeing for some distance, the figure disappeared in a flash. The other natives continued their pursuit after cleaning up the battlefield. The surroundings quickly became quiet. All the god clan members stared in shock at the place where those people disappeared. They were shocked and puzzled. When did such a powerful existence appear in the god clan? Zichen's figure disappeared and reappeared. Then he saw a team not far away. After seeing Zichen, they rushed in his direction without hesitation, even if there was no Wang Erpin in this team. Releasing his spiritual senses, Zichen saw that within the range of his spiritual senses, many teams had appeared and were flying towards him. Whoosh! His figure flashed and disappeared again. However, the situation was still the same. In this sealed area, he could only stay by himself for less than the time it would take to brew a cup of tea. Every time he appeared, an enemy would appear not too long after. This cycle repeated. Under such circumstances, Zichen's consumption would only be greater. During this period, he could not effectively recover. During this period, he could only rely on his doppelgangers to fight while his real body rested and recovered. In this area, Paramello was still looking at the sand table. More than a dozen people stood beside him, responsible for passing on orders. Looking at Zichen's figure on the sand table, which was obviously unable to escape from the encirclement, one of them asked, "Sir, why don't you just send experts to kill him?" Paramello shook his head and said, "This kind of person is extremely difficult to deal with. We only have one chance. so we can't afford to suffer any losses, let alone take risks. Although this is slower, the most important thing is to be safe. When the team completely shrinks, it will be the time for him to die. Looking at Zichen on the sand table, who was constantly disappearing and reappearing, Paramello smiled faintly and said, "He seems to be coming in this direction. It seems that we are about to meet." Birds were everywhere in the sky, paying attention to every place in this area. Zichen had nowhere to hide. He came to the periphery again and saw the team that was obviously shrinking. In his eyes a cold light flashed, and he was ready to try to break through. He flew forward, with lightning flashing on his body. Obviously, he was trying to open a gap here. A ray of light appeared in front of him. Although the encirclement was not affected in the slightest, a king's second grade appeared. When the king's second grade appeared, the shrinking encirclement stopped. That king's second grade did not take the initiative to attack. Instead, he looked at Zichen indifferently. The team in front of him did not advance, but at the other edges, under the condition that there were no gaps in the encirclement, the team sped up. Zichen rushed forward, gripping the long saber in his hand. On the other side, a glowing sword appeared in the king second grade's hand. He was from the soldier race. The moment the two of them came into contact, a powerful shockwave spread out. When this shockwave reached the edge of the encirclement, it was neutralized by the countless craftsmen's domains. While the two of them were fighting, more enemies appeared in other directions. Zichen had used the power of this battle to retreat. This time he had only come to test the waters and see if he could find an opportunity. Obviously, the layers of domains did not give Zichen any chance to take advantage of them. For so many experts to be so obedient, it was obvious that they had received an irresistible order. Zichen wanted to find that person and see if there was a chance. In fact, he also knew that it was impossible for him to have a chance. There must be more experts around that person. Moreover, looking at the current situation, they were really in danger this time. Searching along the way, Zichen finally found a camp which was full of indigenous people. Zichen stood outside the camp. Those indigenous people noticed him, but they did not directly rush up. A man walked out of the camp, followed by several martial kings at level 2. Chapter 3036. Paramello walked out of the camp and walked towards Zichen. Previously, he had insisted on going alone. Naturally, no one agreed. Over the past few days, they had seen Zichen's strength through watching the battle. They were worried that Zichen was still hiding his strength. If he had some powerful means to kill Paramello in one move, they would have nowhere to cry. "Hello, Zichen." Paramello stopped dozens of meters away from Zichen. If he had come alone, he would have felt the pressure. But now, Zichen should be the one feeling the pressure. Fortunately, there were only a few second-grade kings. The others did not follow. Otherwise, he was really worried that Zichen would be scared away. "It's you," Zichen said coldly. "My name is Paramello. I'm from the Paramello family." Paramello smiled faintly. His smile was very gentle and could even be said to be very kind. Zichen frowned. He did not expect that the existence who could mobilize so many indigenous people would be a second-grade king. At this moment, he was thinking about whether he could use all his trump cards to kill the other party in an instant. In this way, without the other party's command, he believed that he could seize the opportunity to rush out. Paramello looked at the calm Zichen and said, "I guess you should be thinking about how to kill me now, right? I advise you to give up on this idea. I already know your methods very well. How can you possibly kill me? Your combat strength is not weak. You also have the netherworld doppelganger and a space that can take you to teleport. Your friends should be hiding in that space, right?" Zichen's expression did not change. Since the other party could monitor his every move, it was normal for him to know about his means. When two armies fight, envoys are not killed. Today, I will let you go, but in the end you will still die. Don't think that I will recruit you. That is impossible. We will not raise a tiger. You must die." Paramello was full of smiles as he spoke. His attitude was as if he was an old friend that Zichen had not seen for many years. Zichen looked at the other party and said nothing. In the next moment his expression changed, and he disappeared from where he stood. A sword mark suddenly appeared and swept past Zichen's body, leaving a cut in the air. Zichen appeared in the distance, with a bloody gash on his arm. He ignored the bleeding wound and didn't look at the native who had launched the sneak attack. His eyes were fixed on Paramello with a cold smile. Whoosh! In the next moment his figure disappeared. The moment he disappeared, another sword mark flashed past, and a few streaks of blood flew in the air. "Your speed is not bad. I was too careless. If I had known earlier, I would have arranged for a craftsman to be here. Perhaps I really could have killed him." Looking at the trail of blood in the air, Paramello waved his hand, indicating for Wang Sanpin to come back and stop chasing. Zichen retreated with 2 sword wounds on his body. In front of an absolute enemy, Zichen could understand the lack of morality. He could accept the fact that the other party had arranged for Wang Sanpin to launch a sneak attack while saying that he would not kill the messenger. However, as he accepted this, killing intent rose in Zichen's heart. It was naturally impossible for him to run away for the time being, so he could only take advantage of this time to take the initiative to kill. Vitality flowed through his body, and his previous injuries quickly healed. A team appeared in front of Zichen. This time, Zichen did not take the initiative to wait for them to arrive. Instead, he teleported in front of them. The moment he appeared, his clone appeared from the other side, and the spirit-devouring monarch grass also appeared in the air. A battle broke out instantly. The Thunder Constitution's energy was in a frenzy. As the energy rumbled, several Wang Yipin were sent flying. The spirit-devouring monarch grass, which had been waiting for a long time, took the opportunity to attack, piercing through these people's bodies. On the clone side, the stone blade slashed, decapitating one rank 1 after another. Before the other teams arrived, the battle here was already over. Zichen teleported away. This team, without a second rank king, was completely slaughtered in a short period of time. This was the price he had to pay for the 2 wounds on his body. After teleporting away and switching places with his clone, Zichen would continue to kill after he had fully recovered. During this period, he would encounter many forces. Many god clans could see this and were extremely shocked. 3 years passed in a flash. In these 3 years, the encirclement had shrunk a lot. Zichen's figure appeared again. Another team had arrived. In this team, there was a king rank 2. Whoosh! A ray of brilliance appeared beside Zichen. It was Monk, holding a light shield. He rushed toward the king rank 2. On the light shield, a ray of light was ignited. The light shrouded the light shield, and a strong and heavy aura burst out. Boom! Monk rushed forward and collided with the king rank 2. A powerful force exploded, and the king rank 2 was sent flying by Monk. Zichen and his clone appeared. Together with the spirit-devouring monarch grass, they began to slaughter the other Wang Yipin. Monk laughed proudly and charged toward the king, rank 2 again. This was a king rank 2 from the Craftsman clan. He smashed the heavy hammer in his hand. The heavy hammer landed on the light shield, causing countless ripples on the light shield. The powerful force activated the patterns on the light shield. In the next moment, these patterns glowed, forming an extremely strong rebound force. Boom! This king rank 2 was sent flying again by the rebound force. In the blink of an eye, all the Wang Yipin here were slaughtered. Only Wang Yipin was left. The void flickered, and a black shadow appeared silently beside Wang Yipin. Buzz! A ray of rule light appeared beside Wang Yipin, protecting his body. The energy trembled, and Wang Yipin retreated. However, the rule light on the surface of his body did not disappear. Then, Zi Chen's real body and his clone arrived. They broke through the King Rank 2's defense and killed him. Looking at the disappearing image on the memory crystal, Paramello's face gradually turned gloomy. In the past few years, Zi Chen's friends had appeared one after another. They still had not awakened, but they had the combat power to deal with them. This had caused them great losses. Now, the only thing that made him feel fortunate was that the encirclement had become extremely small after several years. It was not far from the time to reel in the net. After another 2 years, when the death count of the Aboriginals had almost exceeded 3 digits, the encirclement had finally shrunk to a limit. Paramello looked at the small encirclement on the sand table and said, "Let's go. It's time to reel in the net." He walked toward the light circle. In the light circle, Zi Chen was completely surrounded. The space he was in was suppressed by countless domains, making it impossible for him to escape. He stood there. Beside him stood Tyrant, Lei Ting, Wang Xian-er, and Zhang Haoyan. Over the years, they had killed too many Aboriginals. Chapter 3037. Indeed, it was time to fight for their lives because they were surrounded by Aborigines. Among them, there were Rank 1, Rank 2, and even some Rank 3 who were hiding. This was a trap Zi Chen had known for a long time, but he had tried many ways to break out of it, but he could not. During this period, the army of Aborigines would pass through many forces and go through countless checks. Those who were slightly abnormal would be killed. It was said that the careful checks this time also found many people from the netherworld. It took them more than 5 years to shrink the encirclement step by step to a very small area. It was a stupid method, but it was extremely effective. It did not give Zi Chen any chance to take advantage of it. Now it was time to fight. The Aborigines in the distance just stood there indifferently, blocking the space and not taking the initiative to attack. Zi Chen knew they were waiting for someone. "Let us out." In Zi Chen's world, Su Mengyao said. Zi Chen's doppelganger shook his head. Even if he died, his world might not appear. In this way, everyone might have a chance to survive. If you all die in battle, what's the point of us living? Su Mengyao said, "The structure of this world has already explained everything. If we stay, we will only continue to be suppressed, and the result will only be worse." The world opened, and Su Mengyao and the others all appeared. This was one of the few times they all appeared in the few years they had been in this world. Just as they appeared, a hole opened in the space in front of them, and Paramello walked out from it. Dozens of people walked out with him. The weakest among them was a Rank 2 king, and the strongest had reached Rank 3. With these people taking action, Zi Chen and the others had no chance to survive. Paramello stood at the front, looked at Zi Chen, and said, "These are all the people in your team, right? Very good. After years of war, we still have the last laugh." Zi Chen said indifferently, "So what? In the end, we still won." In the past few years, they had killed many Aborigines. According to the exchange of a life for a life, they did win. Paramello said nonchalantly, "This is war. Naturally, there will be life and death. After I kill all of you, I will keep the women in your team as a reward for your hard work. It can be considered as compensation for everyone's efforts over the years. Even if I die, you will die before me." A powerful aura circulated around Zi Chen's body. At the same time, Zi Chen's friends behind him also activated their own energy. At this moment, their energy auras were fully activated, and their bodies shone with bright light. A faint disdain appeared at the corner of Paramello's mouth as he said, "There's no need for meaningless resistance." With that, he waved his hand and said, "Kill the men, keep the women." Behind him, those second-grade kings and third-grade kings walked forward. Zi Chen's aura grew stronger and stronger, and he gripped his sheathed long saber tightly. Yi Qian and Li Ai, who were also circulating their auras, were a little distracted under this obviously tense atmosphere. The two of them raised their heads at the same time and looked toward the sky. At this moment, apart from the sealed space, there seemed to be nothing else in the sky. There was a trace of doubt and uncertainty in the eyes of the two of them as they looked at the sky. At this moment, those aboriginals had already rushed forward, and a powerful, oppressive aura emerged. While the two of them felt extremely pressured, they could sense the aura in the sky more clearly. After that, the two of them looked at each other and saw the same hint of doubt in each other's eyes. Looking at the situation in front of them, Li Ai nodded at Yi Qian. Yi Qian nodded in response, and her red lips moved slightly as she said, "Open." She only said one word. Her voice was not loud, but it was as if her words were the law, causing everyone around her to hear it clearly. This voice seemed to ring out in their souls, and everyone heard it, including Zi Chen and the others, including those second-grade kings and third-grade kings who were charging forward, as well as Paramello in the distance and the aboriginals who had sealed the space outside. This simple word seemed to have some kind of strange power of the rules, and it made everyone's heart tremble. In the next moment, above Zi Chen and the others, the space began to distort, and a vast aura appeared from within. This vast aura instantly tore apart the countless domain seals that the aboriginals had put up. Such an unforeseen event made everyone look up at the sky. A vortex appeared in the sky, and within that vortex, countless power of the rules surged. The vortex was expanding, and a terrifying pressure descended from that vortex. This pressure only made Zi Chen and the others feel pressured. But when it fell on the aboriginals, it was like a mountain, and many of their faces turned pale. What's going on? Paramello looked at the sky with a face full of fear. Looking at the vortex, he felt that it was unbelievable. The vortex expanded rapidly, and a world appeared from within. In that world, there was a tall altar. Zi Chen and the others looked at the changes in the sky with a blank expression, and they were also very confused about the altar that had suddenly appeared. However, when the aboriginals around them saw the altars, their expressions changed again. That's the awakening altar. Weren't all the altars destroyed? How come there are still more? This is impossible. The aboriginals who recognized the altars were all in disbelief. In their knowledge, all the awakening altars had been destroyed and no one had hidden them. But now, what was going on? Zi Chen and the others, who were originally confused, were pleasantly surprised when they heard the exclamations around them. However, they still didn't know what was going on. But in the next moment, they finally understood. Within the open vortex, 2 rays of light appeared. These 2 rays of light descended from the sky and fell on Yi Qian and Li Ai. The others were still in shock, and they didn't understand what was going on. However, when Zi Chen saw this scene, he suddenly understood and said, "So that's how it is." Everyone didn't know Li Ai's true identity, but Zi Chen knew that Li Ai was a goddess like Yi Qian. Now, the 2 rays of light fell on the 2 of them because they were goddesses. Destroy it quickly. At this moment, Paramello's voice came from behind, and many second-grade and third-grade kings rushed toward the altar. Humph! A cold snort suddenly sounded, and Yi Qian rose into the air and stood in midair. Chapter 3038. With a wave of her hand, she sent a group of natives flying. Her actions were as simple as swatting away a group of annoying flies. The others were extremely shocked. They all stared blankly at the sky, almost in a daze. Yi Qian's colorful dress danced, and her body was surrounded by light. The natives couldn't look directly at her. "So that's how it is," Zi Chen murmured. He finally understood the reason. He understood why God Tajantian still let Yi Qian take the risk here, even though he knew the situation in this world. It turned out that there was a hidden, awakening altar here that the natives didn't know about. Looking at the current situation, the first condition to open this altar was to be the son of God, or to be precise, to have the bloodline of God. After discovering the reason, Zi Chen was very regretful. If he had let Yi Qian and the AI appear earlier and stay in this world for a while longer, they might have discovered this place long ago. Why would they deliberately waste so many years? The appearance of this altar was obviously because the two of them had activated their full strength. The bloodline aura of God had been stimulated, and they had been recognized by the rules. Paramello, who was originally full of confidence, showed obvious panic on his face. After seeing that those powerhouses couldn't do anything to the altar, he shouted again, "Kill those people first!" After killing Zi Chen and the others, even if the awakening altar appeared, it would be useless. Yi Qian waved her hand again. A ray of light fell from the sky and fell on Zi Chen and the others. The next moment, their bodies were enveloped by the light. They flew up uncontrollably into the sky. This light was the pure light of rules. Previously, when they were killing enemies, they had to break through it. For them, it was the most difficult to deal with. But now, this light of rules was under Yi Qian's control, protecting them. The attacks of the third grade and second grade experts came, but they couldn't shake this light of rules at all. This situation was similar to when the divine race faced the aboriginals. Damn it, how could this be? Seeing them rise into the sky, Paramello's face was full of anger. Zi Chen, who was in the sky, looked at Paramello and said, "Paramello, right? We will meet again." After saying that, the group flew toward the altar in the sky and disappeared. Damn it, how could this be? Paramello looked at the place where the group disappeared. His face became very ugly. He didn't expect things to turn out like this. In such a situation where they were bound to die, they could still find the altar and escape. There was unwillingness in his eyes, but more confusion and helplessness. All the altars had been destroyed, so why were there still altars here? And the rules would protect these God clan. These natives could go against everything in this world, but they could not go against the rules. The world will change. Paramello raised his head to look at the sky, his expression becoming extremely solemn. So what if they have the altars? There are only a few people of them, ants. A king third pin looked at Paramello, who was in a daze. There were records of awakening in their families. Even in the past, not all of the Protoss were able to awaken. There were always some who were unable to awaken and needed their protection. They disdained to protect the weak, and even the awakened gods were not much stronger than them. Thus a battle began. In that battle, the natives won a complete victory and suppressed the divine race from then on. This suppression lasted for many years. They never thought that there would be a problem this time. That being said, Paramello still couldn't calm down. The other natives were also shocked by this scene, but there was nothing they could do. The strange phenomenon in the sky had disappeared. Everything returned to normal. No one knew where the altar was. Naturally, they couldn't find it. After a short stay, they could only retreat. They were full of confidence when they came, but they left dejected. After years of encirclement, they ended with heavy losses. The divines in the distance also saw the scene that happened in the encirclement, but they didn't know what was going on. To them, it was fortunate that those people were not dead, and they were thankful for that. Because of the existence of these people, the natives' undefeated legend had been broken. This was also a kind of encouragement for all the God clan. Not long after, a piece of news spread. The space that suddenly appeared was an altar space. That altar was the foundation of all the God clan's power. The awakening altar had always been a secret among most of the God clan. But after the altar appeared today, it was no longer a secret. Knowing that the awakening altar was the foundation of their power, the God clan couldn't remain calm. The same news quickly spread to the Netherworld. The leader of the Netherworld was shocked. He found it unbelievable. He knew very well that the awakening altar had been completely destroyed. But why? After learning the details through other means, the Netherworld leader's expression changed. Could it be her? At this moment, the Netherworld leader began to suspect the identity of the woman who caused the awakening altar to appear. After carefully thinking about it, his expression changed again. The reason for that was because he could only think of a single possibility. As for that possibility, it caused him to be extremely shocked. The God clan member beside Zichen was also the woman who caused the awakening altar to appear. She was a son of God. This was the only possibility that could explain why the altars, which had been destroyed long ago, suddenly appeared. Because this place was created by the God of God. Only the God of God knew all the secrets of this place. Looks like they've gotten themselves into big trouble this time. A son of God has actually come here. A smile appeared on the Netherworld leader's face. The natives had suffered a great loss. He was naturally happy to see it. When the crowd reappeared, they were already in the middle of the altar. The altar was very tall. There were 8 pillars around it. An ancient aura permeated the surroundings. This was an altar space, and there was only one altar in this place. This is the awakening altar. At this moment, the crowd curiously sized up the altar. There was a trace of joy in their eyes. If it wasn't for the altar's sudden appearance, they would be in danger. How do we use this altar? Tyrant asked curiously. Awakening power. Yi Qian's figure descended from above. What power? The crowd was still puzzled. Yi Qian shook her head and said, "A power that belongs to you, but it's completely activated." The crowd still didn't understand what Yi Qian was trying to say. However, since they were already here, they had enough patience to sense the altar and sense the power within it. After a short rest, the crowd sat cross-legged on the altar and began to sense the power that Yi Qian had mentioned. Zichen's body emitted light. An aura was released. When this aura came into contact with the altar, it was infinitely magnified. Chapter 3039. Rather than calling it awakening, it was better to call it activating one's original power. The moment Zichen sat cross-legged, the place he was in became a space of its own. In this space, there were many rule forces. These rule forces were the ones he had before. Some were comprehended when he broke through to the Earth Prime realm, while some were derived from his own world. Seeing these rule forces and thinking about the battle with the natives, Zichen, who had experienced the Earth Prime realm, quickly understood the meaning of the awakening altar. He opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, the isolated space around him disappeared. He saw the people on the altar again. These are rule forces. Zichen said, "We need to reactivate the rule forces that we once mastered." "What rule forces?" Martin asked in confusion. Lunk also looked at him in surprise. Luo Yi and Li Ai also couldn't understand. One of them was an expert on the list, while the other was a goddess. Zichen said, "When we reach the Earth Prime realm, the rule forces that we comprehended are our original power. The awakened power is also the rule forces that we comprehended at that time. It's just that, with our current realm, the rule forces will naturally become stronger." Chen's explanation was simple. Tyrant and the others nodded. But Li Ai and the other Protoss were confused, because they had never experienced the Earth Prime realm. The 3 realms of heaven, earth, and mortal were only for ordinary mortals. They had to walk step by step and experience many hardships. But for the Protoss, they were born as higher beings. They didn't need to walk step by step. Their power surpassed the Heaven Prime realm at birth, and was even stronger than many saints. Right now, the Protoss didn't understand the power that Tyrant and the others could easily understand. This was the meaning of awakening. This power was hidden in the body and didn't appear. It needed the special power of the altar to guide it. This was for the Protoss, for the mortals who came from the Life Star and relied on themselves to reach their current realm. This wasn't awakening, but reactivation. Relatively speaking, it was simpler than the Protoss. Yi Qian had reached the Earth Prime realm before her power was completely transformed into divine power. She naturally knew what her rule forces were. The Celestials were different. Among the many laws, they had to choose the one that was most suitable for them. This was much more difficult to comprehend than when they were in the earthly realm. After Zichen told everyone everything, he continued to sit cross-legged and meditate on the laws in his body. His clone appeared beside him, also sitting cross-legged to comprehend. Countless types of rule force filled the space around him. Zichen sensed these rule forces and found the most suitable one for him. He had a very clear goal, which was the rule power that he had fused with back then. That power was the fusion of many rule powers, and it was called rule destruction. At the same time, it was a unique power that only he possessed in this world. That kind of power was called heaven-defying power. Because of his clear goal, it was not difficult for Zichen to choose among the countless rule-bending powers. He had found his own rule power. Compared to before, it had become much stronger. The rule power that he had comprehended had also become much stronger as he grew stronger. This power had always been there, but it was suppressed by the rules of the world. It was just like how after Tyrant and the others came to the divine world, they were unable to open the world that they had cultivated. Those worlds were still there, but they were suppressed by the rules of the world and could not be opened. The power of this world was very special, and this altar was an extremely special existence. So after coming here, it was able to stimulate this kind of power. There was no doubt that this was the biggest secret of this world, and also the greatest opportunity for all Protoss. Zichen used a very short time to find the power he needed, but he did not take it away immediately, because there were still countless types of power around him. These powers were different from the ones that appeared when the Protoss awakened and needed to be comprehended. Those powers needed to be chosen by the Protoss, and they could not obtain all of them. But the power that appeared around Zichen was the power that evolved after his world was perfected. It could be said that they were the rule forces that he had mastered. At this moment, if Zichen chose to accept the heaven-defying destructive power, it would mean that he would have to exclude all the other powers of the laws. Although this would still make him stronger than he was now, it would still be a pity for Zichen. So Zichen hesitated, but the hesitation was only temporary. The next moment he knew what to do. Fuse. This was a path that he had walked a long time ago, and there was no harm in walking it again. He came to the side of the rule-bending powers and reached out to grab it. At this moment, a rule force fell on him, trying to expel him from this place. A powerful fluctuation appeared on Zichen's body, and this fluctuation blocked the rule-bending powers. Immediately after, Zichen grasped the heaven-defying destructive force and began to guide the surrounding rule force to gather towards the heaven-defying destructive force. These rule forces revolved around Zichen's body, and then one by one, they entered the rule-bending powers. With the addition of these different rule forces, the light released by the rule-bending powers in front of Zichen became brighter and brighter, and its aura became stronger and stronger. Zichen grabbed the rule-bending powers and began to absorb the other rule forces around him to strengthen his own power. Above his head, the rule-bending powers that were isolated disappeared. The aura released by Zichen's body also became stronger and stronger. After an unknown amount of time, when the last rule force was fused into his own power, the rule-bending powers in front of Zichen turned into a circle. This was a perfect circle without any flaws, as if it was a world composed of rule forces. It was just that, in this world full of countless rule forces, the rule-bending powers had an absolute dominant position. Within the sphere of rule-bending powers, there was a flash of lightning, indicating the attribute of this rule force. Looking at this perfect sphere of rule-bending powers with satisfaction, Zichen opened his mind and absorbed this power. This power entered his body and connected to the world, and his world's rule force began to change. The originally scattered rules seemed to have been combined at this moment. It was as if a group of ordinary people had become a well-trained and orderly troop of soldiers. The rule force was still the same rule force, but its essence had changed. After fusing with the rule force, Zichen opened his eyes. He disappeared from the independent space of the altar, and a powerful aura was released from his body. Countless bolts of lightning, emitting different lights, circulated around his body, releasing a terrifying aura. Chapter 3040. The aura released from Zi-Chen's body was extremely terrifying. It wasn't any weaker than when he was using his thunder body. At the same time, it wasn't any weaker than his clone. Such a terrifying aura caused the others, who were comprehending, to wake up. They looked up at Zi-Chen. After sensing the power around him, their expressions changed. Then, a look of surprise appeared in their eyes. "How is it?" Su Mengyao stood up and looked at Zi-Chen. "Buzz!" Zi-Chen's body flashed with light as he activated the power of the natural order. A space appeared behind him. It was like the reality realm, but it was also like the craftsman race's craftsman space. Martin and the others were surprised. They didn't have this kind of power before, so they didn't know what this situation meant. In their opinion, the space behind Zi-Chen was the same as the craftsman domain. After witnessing the power of the craftsman domain, they were naturally amazed by the space behind Zi-Chen. Zi-Chen looked up at the altar and said, "It seems that in this world we can remove the suppression of the world's rules. With this altar, we can get twice the result with half the effort." Those who had walked through the Earth realm were all too familiar with this scene, so they all became excited. Zi-Chen had successfully awakened. They had also walked through this realm, so they would naturally awaken as well. After awakening our own rules, we can naturally ignore this suppression. Zi-Chen said with a smile, "When we leave, it'll be time for us to counterattack." Although Zi-Chen was smiling, his smile was cold. He naturally wouldn't forget the years of pursuit and Wang Sanpin's sneak attack. At this moment, in the world behind Zi-Chen, a powerful energy suddenly emerged. This energy was fed back into Zi-Chen's body, and Zi-Chen's aura began to skyrocket. His soul changed under the surge of energy and soon reached a limit. Then, without encountering any obstacles, he crossed this boundary. Wang Sanpin. It could also be said that he was an ancestral king. The moment he broke through, the soul of the clone not far away also began to change. It was just that his clone hadn't sensed his rule force yet. Zi-Chen began to refine the Supreme Crystal to consolidate his cultivation. He had obtained quite a lot of Supreme Crystal over the years of constant fighting and killing. He also had a lot of materials. After he left this time, he could go to the Netherworld to exchange for them. After reactivating his own rule force, Zi-Chen's combat power had undoubtedly become more powerful. This was also his strongest state. Even though his world could be slashed apart, it was not recognized by the rules. It was not like the lightning body, which could surpass the rules of the world, so its battle prowess was limited. Things were different now. If another craftsman came, it would be much more difficult to trap him with the artifact refining domain, unless the craftsman was much more powerful than Zi-Chen. If he were to encounter the suppression of countless domains like last time, Zi-Chen would only need a single thought to break free. This was because, although they had many domains, their grades were too low. He returned to his own world and began to familiarize himself with his current strength. The others were still comprehending. Paramello led his troops back, and all the natives of the entire world were under his command. He believed that this was a war, so he stood his ground and stopped the method of sending powerhouses to kill. He used the stupidest and most reliable method, and after many years, it was finally time to reap the fruits of victory. However, the heavens did not let him have his way. The awakening altar suddenly appeared and took away those people. This news caused all of the natives to become uneasy. As a result, more people were sent out to find the hidden altar space. Everyone panicked, as if the end of the world had come. What are you panicking for? We were able to win the battle back then, so why should we be afraid of a few dozen God race experts? Faced with the panicked atmosphere, the older generation stepped out to suppress it. This made many of the younger natives feel slightly more at ease. Kong Mo, who had been under house arrest in the craftsman race, laughed happily when he heard this news. I knew that Big Brother would be fine. He had wanted to leave the craftsman race immediately after hearing about the siege, but he had been under house arrest ever since. He was very happy to hear this news. Afterwards, he no longer made a fuss and began to focus on cultivation. He hoped that he would be able to help in the next battle. It had been 3 years since the last battle. During these 3 years, the natives had never given up on searching for Zi-Chun and the others. Almost all of the God Race forces knew about this matter. They were also waiting for Zi-Chun and the others to appear. If they really did awaken, it would be an extremely good thing for all of the God Race. During these few years, the Netherworld did not make any big moves. It seemed very quiet, as if it was also waiting. In private, many God generals were taken to the Netherworld to comprehend the power of the Netherworld. Zi-Chun comprehended the fused power the fastest. It took him about a year. After that, he stayed in the Netherworld and comprehended the strongest power he had obtained so far. When he entered the Netherworld, he told everyone that his power of rules had been fused again. During these years, some people would inevitably comprehend some other rules. Once they fused, their combat strength would naturally become stronger. Just as Zi-Chun was comprehending his own power, his body suddenly trembled, and he looked into the distance. He saw a ray of light released from the Saber Ancestor's tablet. It was a ray of saber intent, a king-level saber intent. Before the saber intent, the golden body stood up and turned into a ray of light that returned to Zi-Chun's body. During those years, he had been fighting and did not have time to comprehend the saber intent. Therefore, when the monks comprehended the true meaning of the ancestral tablet, he still did not comprehend it. After such a long time, the clone finally comprehended the true meaning. The clone's comprehension was equivalent to his comprehension. Next, it was time for him to fuse. He got up and walked toward the ancestral tablet in front of him. It took him a very short time to fuse the saber intent comprehended by the clone. When the long saber was unsheathed, 3 rays of saber intent circulated. There were 3 levels of saber intent. Zi-Chun walked in front of the ancestral tablet. The 3 rays of saber intent on the saber flew out and landed on the ancestral tablet in front of him. The next moment, the ancestral tablet began to tremble and then shrank. It finally turned into a ray of light and fused with the saber. As the ancestral tablet fused with the saber, Zi-Chun could clearly feel the power of the saber. There was no doubt that he had mastered another powerful attack. After comprehending the saber intent, it was time for Zi-Chun to comprehend the true meaning of speed. As for the monks and the others, they had activated their own power of rules one after another. After activating, the world that they could not open before had turned into a domain world this time. Martin, Lunk, Roy, and Li AI still had not comprehended it. It could even be said that they were still confused. 2 years later, Yi Qian also comprehended it. Chapter 3041. The aura released by Yi Qian wasn't very strong, but it had a special pressure. This pressure vaguely had the aura of a God Realm expert. When everyone sensed this aura, their expressions changed. Why is there such a pressure? Zi-Chun walked out of the world and looked at Yi Qian. He was puzzled, but more than that, he was pleasantly surprised. It should be the change of the bloodline, said Yi Qian. When the bloodline of a God Realm expert changed, even if he didn't have the fighting capacity of a God Realm expert, he would still be much stronger than an ordinary God Realm expert. Obviously, this was a good thing. Everyone looked at Li AI. They already knew that Li AI was also a son of God, but his situation was different from Yi Qian's. Li AI shook his head slowly and said with shame, I haven't felt it yet. Zi-Chun smiled and comforted him. It's okay. Take your time to feel it. When I reached this step, it took me 1,000 years. That's why I can break through the realms so fast. Li AI nodded. Martin and the others also felt the pressure in their heart's lesson. Even Zi-Chun, who had great talents, took 1,000 years. Compared to Zi-Chun, they didn't have outstanding talents. In the following time, Zichen's friends from the Life Star stimulated their strongest rule power one after another. When they felt this power, the world domain that they could use in this world also gave them some energy feedback, which helped them break through to King Realm Stage 2. After breaking through, they continued to refine the blue spirit crystal to strengthen their Realm Stage 2. Zichen was feeling the essence of the ancestral wing tablet in the world. Yiqian suddenly came to him and said, "If you're in a hurry to leave, we can leave now." Zichen turned around and looked at Yiqian. He didn't understand. Back then, Li Ai and I both sensed the energy fluctuations. I was the one who opened this place, so I can also take this place away. Similarly, Li Ai can open an awakening altar that belongs to her alone, said Yiqian. Zichen stood up and said with surprise, "This place can be taken away." Yiqian smiled and said, "Others can't. Only I can take it away." When Zichen heard this, he was both surprised and delighted. At the same time, he sighed in his heart. The gods who had built this place might have predicted that the natives would rebel, so they deliberately left behind other awakening altars. These awakening altars could only be activated and controlled by the sons of gods. At the same time, Zichen was also guessing if this was the scene that Heavenly God would be happy to see. He looked at Yiqian and asked, "What do you plan to do next?" Yiqian was slightly startled. "Why are you asking me? Shouldn't I be asking you what plans you have?" Zichen said, "Perhaps this is the true intention of the heavenly gods. Ever since you came to the God realm, you have yet to develop your own forces. This is a good opportunity." Yiqian understood what Zichen meant. After coming to the divine world, the other children of gods all had their own forces and families to support them. Yiqian didn't, other than her heavenly god father. She didn't have any other power in the god realm. In fact, she didn't even receive any power from a heavenly god. She only had a small group of people from the God City and the Moonwolf clan. However, their numbers were too small and their realms were too low. Now it was different. All the god clans in this world were suppressed by the rules. If Yiqian appeared with the awakening altar, it would have a profound meaning to the god clans in this world. If Yiqian could build up her forces in this world, it would be fast. Moreover, the people she recruited would be experts. Yiqian was very smart. Of course, she understood what Zichen meant. She smiled and said, "How can you say that I don't have a force? The Life Star is my force, and you are also a member of my force. Now, I can appoint you as the vanguard and recruit a group of loyal experts." "Okay." Zichen nodded. Actually, his words were unnecessary. The two of them were already inseparable. When they walked out of the world, Li Ai stopped comprehending. Yiqian nodded at her. Li Ai's figure flashed, leaving the awakening altar and entering the space. Then, she released her aura and summoned her awakening altar. The void vibrated, and another awakening altar appeared. A mighty aura spread out. Facing this aura, Zichen and the others who had comprehended the power of rules had the power to resist. Li Ai and the other god clans who had not awakened the power of rules went to her awakening altar. Yiqian kept her awakening altar. After leaving the coordinates of Li Ai's awakening altar, Zichen and the others flashed and left. After a few years, they reappeared in this world. Everyone had gained power and broken through. "Are we going to take revenge directly?" Monk asked. He could not wait. Zichen looked around and said, "No, let's go and find out some information first." Among all the god clans, the one who knew the natives and this world the best was, of course, the Netherworld. Zichen planned to go to the Netherworld's forces to ask about the situation. Everyone followed him. Along the way, they encountered some heavenly beasts. They fought to kill them. After awakening their powers, they could ignore the rules and defense of this place. Naturally, they could fight freely. Zichen came to the end of the Netherworld token's guidance. When the others entered his world, his figure flashed and disappeared. The next moment, Zichen appeared in a space. The light of the teleportation formation lingered around. Chan walked out of the teleportation formation. At this moment, there were many guards around watching him. After sensing that Chan was a rank 2, someone was very surprised and wanted to come forward to ask. The next moment, he was stopped by others. The person who stopped him shook his head. His eyes were full of fear. This rank 2 king, who had just arrived, did not understand his companion's behavior. At this moment, someone quickly came forward and said respectfully, "Greetings, sir." Seeing that the rank 2 king leader was so polite to the other party, these newcomers were even more puzzled. But soon, he and the others who were puzzled understood the reason, because there were exclamations all around. Among the exclamations, he heard Chen's name, now in the netherworld. Who had not heard of Chen's name? He had been besieged by countless natives for several years. Under the circumstances that the natives had suffered heavy losses, he had successfully escaped. It could be said that in just a few years he had killed more natives than all the other Netherworld members combined. Is Sir Netherworld here? Chen did not care about the surprised gazes around him. He looked at rank 2 king in front of him and asked, "Yes, sir. Please follow me." Chen left the teleportation area under the lead of rank 2 king. Wherever he passed, everyone looked at him. While they were amazed, there was also a touch of curiosity and expectation, because everyone knew that he had disappeared because he had found the awakening altar. Chapter 3042. Chen met Lord Netherworld at the door. Lord Netherworld had already heard the announcement and knew that Chen had come. "Congratulations." Lord Netherworld smiled as he looked at Chen, who was walking over. Chen said politely, "This is all thanks to Lord Netherworld's help." If it were not for the fact that his clone had obtained the power of the underworld, Chen would not have been able to face the encirclement so easily back then. Moreover, the battle had lasted for several years, and he had killed countless aboriginals. Many people have gotten the opportunity, but none of them were like you. This is also your good fortune. You don't have to be too humble. This strongest expert of the underworld had clearly also found out about the battle prowess of Chen's clone through other channels. When he found out about the 90% conversion rate, he was also extremely shocked. However, he did not ask too much about this matter today. Last time, we intended to make a move. However, the enemy came aggressively and caused us great losses. The subordinate who had brought Chen here earlier had already left. Lord Netherworld personally brought Chen into the living room and said this as an explanation. Chen sighed and said, "Indeed, the aboriginals last time were really too crazy. If it weren't for my good luck, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to see Lord Netherworld. Although Paramello's talent in this world is not high, he is an extremely intelligent person. Our people have suffered many losses at his hands. Moreover, he has never failed in any of the battles he has participated in, whether it is to seize territory or snatch resources. The last time could be considered his only failure in history." Lord Netherworld said, "I heard that you guys entered an awakening altar. I wonder if you have awakened, Chen?" Chen had nothing to hide about this. He nodded and said, "I have awakened. I can indeed fight against the aboriginals." Lord Netherworld heard this and immediately said, "Congratulations!" "Congratulations." Chen said, "This time I came here to exchange for some resources. Another reason is to ask Lord Netherworld some questions about the aboriginals of this world. I hope Lord Netherworld can tell me." "Oh, what questions are they?" Lord Netherworld asked curiously. "The structure of this world and the strongest expert in this world. What level is he at? And those resources, I wonder if we can get them?" This was the purpose of Chen's visit. With the awakening altar, he indeed had plans to expand his influence. It was because the people on this life star needed a long time to grow. Moreover, his force lacked King God realm experts. Of course, he wouldn't miss this chance. This was probably the main reason God had asked Yi Qian to come here. Whether it was for Yi Qian or for himself, Zi Chen could not waste this rare opportunity. There was more than one son of God in the firmament. If he were to wait for the others to arrive, he would be in deep trouble. When the Son of God came to this world, he would be able to sense this world and summon the awakening altar. Last time, because Yi Qian and Li Ai had been in his world, they had been cut off from this kind of connection, which caused them to waste a few years. Zi Chen wanted to have a comprehensive understanding of this world. Lord Netherworld could vaguely guess the reason. He thought for a while and then said, "Under normal circumstances, the strongest expert in this world should be a third-grade king, because the God King's path to heaven doesn't stop at this level. After the realm of third grade, because of the rules of this world, they can't get energy from this area. Thus, after reaching third grade, they will leave this area and go to the next level. However, to be safe, some families will have 1 or 2 experts who have paid a big price to reach 4th grade. They are the strongest experts of the native families. They protect their families from being invaded or swallowed. Anyway, the natives aren't as united as you think. Wars have been going on for a long time. About the resources, except for the high-quality Supreme Crystal, we can refine it directly. But most of them need the natives to process it. It's like the Craftsman clan can refine weapons and armors, which we're not good at. I remember that I told you that the natives used to work for the God clan. After the God clan came here, they only needed to sense the awakening power. The natives took care of everything else." Zichen said. "In other words, we can't leave the natives." Lord Netherworld nodded and said, "The natives can't leave the God clan. In other words, they can't leave the God clan who hasn't awakened power. This is because they need more labor to mine and produce." Zichen was now only in the realm of 2nd grade. He might not be able to deal with a 4th grade. Once he started to recruit the God clan on a large scale, the enemies of 4th grade would come knocking on their door. They would be in danger. "Sir, what realm are you in now?" Zichen looked at Lord Netherworld and asked. "I just reached 4th grade," Lord Netherworld said. Zichen said, "To be honest, I got an awakening altar this time. I plan to create a force to awaken more God clan and fight against the natives." Lord Netherworld had already guessed it, but he was still surprised when he heard Zichen say it. In this world, controlling the awakening altar was equivalent to controlling the life of all the God clan. If Zichen expanded his force, he would be able to recruit many God kings in an instant. He would be even more popular than Lord Netherworld. Zichen continued, "However, it will take a long time for the God clan to awaken. I'm afraid it will take decades or even centuries. I'm worried that it will cause trouble during this time." Lord Netherworld obviously did not know the details of the awakening. However, from the information he heard, it was destined to take some time. What Zichen said made sense. He thought for a moment and said, "This is indeed a threat, but if you are careful, there should be hope. Although the 4th grade clans are very strong, they may not attack you. For example, the Netherworld that I created. They know that you are a threat, but they still don't do anything. Also, the encirclement against you. Even the 3rd grade clans went, but none of the 4th grade clans went, right? Why is that?" Zichen asked, puzzled. "If you want to reach rank 4, you have to pay a great price. There aren't many rank 4 experts in the indigenous tribes. They are the true foundation. Only when the tribe is destroyed will they appear to resolve the crisis," Lord Netherworld said. "In other words, as long as I don't step into their clans, they won't appear?" Zichen asked. "From what I know, that is the case. However, we can't rule out other possibilities." Zichen nodded. Regardless of whether the 4th grade clans would come, he had to find a way to build his force. After exchanging the resources with Lord Netherworld, He bid farewell and left. After leaving Netherworld, his first step was to recruit people. He had already chosen his target. It was the Semaphores that he used to be in. He was more familiar with that place because Whaley was there. Chapter 3043. Zi-Chen left Netherworld and brought his men to Semaphores. You seem to trust Lord Netherworld a lot. Aren't you afraid that he'll expose us? Su Mengyao looked at Zi-Chen. People will find out that we're building an organization sooner or later. We'll have to fight next. That doesn't matter. Besides, we already know the situation in this world, don't we? Zi-Chen said with a smile. Su Mengyao said worriedly, what if a fourth-grade king attacks? With our current strength, we can't fight a fourth-grade king. Zi-Chen's expression turned serious. That's what I'm most worried about. Rank 4 is troublesome. Why don't we set up a secret base first? Don't announce it to the public and hide it for now. Wait until we've nurtured many powerhouses before announcing it to the public? Su Mengyao suggested. Not only would a rank 4 kill, but they would also destroy the awakening altar. If the altar was destroyed, everything would be over. Leave the hiding altar to me. Hide it in an independent space. Rank 4 shouldn't be able to find it. Yi Qian stood on the other side of Zi-Chen and said, That's good too. Zi-Chen nodded and asked, How many people can the altar awaken at the same time? Zi-Chen had more than 20 people. Although it was not crowded at all, Zi-Chen felt that this altar was extraordinary. Perhaps it had other tricks up its sleeves. A few hundred people. Yi Qian said, The awakening altar can be enlarged and shrunk. However, I suggest that it's best to find godly kings who have progressed step by step. Are there? Zi-Chen said. Am I not one? Many godly tribes in the heavenly realm are not born godly tribes. Many of them obtained opportunities and progressed step by step. There may not be many of them, but there are definitely some. Hearing Yi Qian's suggestion, Zi-Chen nodded. After a few long-distance teleportations, Zi-Chen arrived at Semaphores once again. This was the first place they stayed in after arriving in this world. This was also his goal. If he guessed correctly, the information about them had also spread from here. With a flash, Zi-Chen appeared in the sky above Semaphores. Many god kings and god generals worked listlessly. They could not see any hope for the future, so they were just idling away their days. Zi-Chen's appearance did not attract much attention. Everyone was already numb to it. One of them inadvertently raised his head. When he saw Zi-Chen's appearance, he was slightly startled, and a hint of confusion appeared in his lifeless eyes. He seemed to have seen this person somewhere before. In the next instant, even more people appeared beside Zi-Chen. Seeing these people, Zi-Chen's eyes shone with a bright light, his eyes once again glowing with radiance. It's you! He let out a cry of surprise because he didn't know Zi-Chen's name. More people looked up and saw Zi-Chen and his friends in the air. Most of them didn't know Zi-Chen's name, but that didn't stop them from recognizing Zi-Chen. Many people had seen the battle back then. They were extremely shocked that Zi-Chen and the others could easily kill the natives. Moreover, it was because of that incident that they knew about the awakening altar. Cries constantly rang out in the surroundings. Even more god kings raised their heads to look at this scene in shock. There were more and more people, and all of them had recovered their spirits. Where is your leader? Zi-Chen looked at the crowd below and asked coldly. I am. A rank 2 king flew over quickly. He cupped his fists at Zi-Chen and said, Sir, I am Kai Ma. Zi-Chen looked at Kai Ma and asked, Our matter should have started from here, right? Kai Ma didn't hide anything. He nodded and said, Yes, it was Sun En who told the natives who came here to collect materials. Sun En, Kai Ma. Zi-Chen seemed to have guessed the structure of this force. He asked, Where is he? Sun En left a few years ago after he broke through to rank 3. Where did he go? Another level. Since he had left, the matter could not be investigated. He glanced at Kai Ma and said, "From now on, I will take over this force." Kai Ma cupped his fists and said, "We couldn't ask for more." Zichen stood in the air and looked down at the god generals and god kings. He said, "From today onwards, the Senma force will be disbanded and a new force will be born. The name of this force is Nightmare. It means that the natives' nightmare is coming." Everyone looked at each other, but their expressions didn't change much. "Next, we will fight the natives. If you want to leave, you can leave at any time. If you want to stay, we will welcome you. However, if you stay, you must be prepared to fight the natives. At the same time, you must be prepared to die in battle. Of course, you must also be prepared to awaken your powers," Zichen said. The god race, who hadn't done anything before, suddenly opened their eyes wide. Their expressions changed greatly. "Sir, what did you just say?" Kai Ma, who was in front of Zichen, asked. "Be prepared to die in battle at any time," Zichen said. Kai Ma shook his head and said, "No, we can die at any time, so we are not afraid of dying in battle. It's the last sentence. You said we must be prepared to awaken, right?" "That's right." Zichen nodded and said, "Is there a problem?" "Sir, is what you said true? Sir, can you really help us awaken?" Kai Ma asked excitedly. Among the crowd, those from the divine race were also looking at Zichen without blinking. Zichen shook his head and said, "I can only provide you with an opportunity. Whether you can awaken or not is up to you." As soon as he said this, the crowd went wild. All the god race began to cheer. After so many years of suppression, they finally saw hope today. Kai Ma is willing to be loyal to Sir until death. Kai Ma knelt on one knee in the air with a respectful expression. Geta is willing to be loyal to Sir until death. Gear is willing to be loyal to Sir and fight to the death for Sir. One by one, the god race members knelt on one knee, respectfully and devoutly expressing their sincerity. Their voices were loud and clear, like rolling thunder. In the blink of an eye, everyone in the Senma force knelt and declared their loyalty. After so many years of suppression, they finally had an opportunity today. How could they miss it? Wei Li is willing to be loyal to Sir. In the crowd, Wei Li raised his head to look at this scene, and his expression became excited. He once again rejoiced that he had made the right choice. Zichen looked at all the god race members and said, "My name is Zichen, and from now on, I will be the leader of Nightmare. I will not let you all die for no reason. Even if it is a battle to the death, I will charge to the front and fight with you all. You are not my servants, nor are you my slaves. You are now my subordinates, and in the future, you may become friends with me, Zichen." "Kai Ma." Zichen looked at Kai Ma. "Here." Kai Ma replied loudly. "You and Wei Li calculate the number of people here. I want to reorganize them," Zichen said. "Yes." Chapter 3044. Kai Ma looked at Zichen's friends and was about to respectfully ask them which one of them was Wei Li. Suddenly, a rank 9 divine general came over. He looked at Zichen and said excitedly, "I knew you could do it." Zichen looked at Wei Li and said, "I'll have to trouble you with the following matters." Wei Li said, "It's my honor." Then he turned around and said to Kai Ma, "Sir, I'm Wei Li. Brother Wei, we'll have to work together more from now on." The astonishment in Kai Ma's eyes turned into a smile. Wei Li was clearly acquainted with leader Zichen. How could Kai Ma dare to treat him as the lord he was referring to? Below them, many people knew Wei Li. Previously, he was just a miner, but in the blink of an eye, he had become the new leader's favorite. This change made them feel very complicated. Just like that, the Nightmare faction was formed. They used Senma's original group of people, but Zichen needed to make some adjustments. A large hall appeared in the middle of the Nightmare faction. Although the grade of the hall wasn't high, No one would dare to destroy it. Zi-Chin and the others entered the hall. Apart from Li Ai and the others, who were still comprehending the power of laws, everyone else was present. Zi-Chen sat on the main seat, and the others sat on the sides. This kind of seating hadn't been seen for many years. When the Boundless sect was still around, Zi-Chen sat on the main seat as the sect master. Just like that, the faction was formed. Although the name Nightmare was a bit strange, it had been discussed before. Originally, they wanted to call it the Grim Reaper, but after some discussion, they changed it to Nightmare. This was because they didn't have the combat strength of the Grim Reaper. As for Nightmare, they could give it to the natives, or the natives could give it to them. It was to intimidate the enemy, but also to remind themselves that Nightmare could come at any time. Zi-Chin looked at everyone and said with a bitter smile, "Another faction has been formed. What do you all think?" Since the faction had been formed, no one had any objections. "I suggest that we have more leaders," Monk said. "For example, a second leader, a third leader, something like that." Zi-Chin laughed and said, "We have more than 20 people here. Does that mean we have 20 leaders?" Thinking back to when they had introduced themselves to the others, they couldn't help but smile. Tyrant said, "Wouldn't it be better to divide them into male and female leaders? You are the male leader. I am the second male leader. Yi Qian is the female leader. Meng Yao is the second female leader, and so on." The demon ape said, "In that case, there are more than 10 leaders. Why are you the second leader and not the 12th leader?" The monk said proudly, "Because Lord Zheng is powerful, the number 1 defense in the world. Being the second in command is already an injustice. I believe that even if I were to become the first in command, no one would have any objections." Hearing this, the others burst into laughter. The devil ape, on the other hand, was impressed by how thick-skinned the monk was. He didn't even use the light shield during the battle. Since we're determined to develop a force, we naturally have to manage it well. How about this? I see that there are some members of the goddess clan in the team. Let's separate the men and women. We'll each lead a team. When the laughter subsides, Su Mengyao stands up and says, "Regarding the management of a force, Su Mengyao had the most say. In the past, the Everlasting Sect was managed by her and a few other women. Everyone will lead a team to protect everyone's safety. Let them mine resources in peace. In between, take out some resources and let the qualified divine generals break through first. During the reorganization, we can find the first batch of qualified divine kings and let them awaken first." Since they had decided to establish a force, they naturally had to have a corresponding method. Moreover, there might be battles later. So many problems would naturally arise. Zi-Chin knew nothing about the management of a force, so he naturally did as Su Mengyao said. After Su Mengyao explained the following arrangements, she said again, "Right now, we don't have any foundation, so it's not suitable for us to expand our force. If other forces are willing to join us, we can't agree for now." This was clearly said to Zi-Chen because he was the true leader. "Okay," Zi-Chen nodded. Naturally, he would listen to Su Mengyao. Wei Li naturally became an existence on the same level as Kaima. After that, all the divine generals who had gone out were called back. When they heard that the Senma force had disbanded and become the Nightmare force, they were very puzzled. If changing a name could make a force stronger, then they would rather change a name every day. Nowadays, the strength of a force didn't depend on numbers, but on the number of experts who could fight against the natives. However, when they heard that it was the divine general who had made the natives suffer a great loss, they were greatly shocked. Because that person had left from the Senma force, every time they mentioned him, they felt a great deal of pride in their hearts. Knowing that there was still a chance to awaken, they were extremely excited and immediately turned back. Wei, Li, and Kaima did a head count of the original forces. Currently, in the Nightmare Force, there were 2,565 first-stage kings. There were 12 second-grade kings. As for ninth-grade divine generals, There were more than 8,000 of them. There was no specific count because there were people dying every day. In this place, the lives of ninth grade divine generals were very low. They were truly in a precarious situation. Divide these Wang Yiping into 2 teams, one for the men and one for the women. Zichen reorganized the Wang Yiping according to Su Mingyao's instructions. Next, Monk and the others took on the role of team leader. They were responsible for leading the team to kill heavenly beasts. With them, there was no more bait in the team. As for the mines, there were also a few people in charge of guarding. Once there was danger, they would take the initiative to attack. It took 3 days to divide the teams. After that, it was time to recruit those divine generals who had gone through the Earth Prime stage. Regardless of whether they were divine generals or divine kings, as long as they had gone through the Earth Prime stage, they could join. Most of the divine generals were confused when they heard about this stage. Only a few of them knew what the Earth Prime stage was. It was the proof of their journey, indicating that they had walked step by step to reach where they were today. In the heavenly realm, this situation was seen as impure bloodline and would be despised by many divine generals. However, now, the accumulation of the past had become a shortcut to their strength. To Zichen's surprise, Wei Li also walked out. The former number 1 on the roll of generals had also walked step by step to reach where he was today. Looking at the many ninth-grade divine generals in front of him, Zichen was surprised when he found out that almost all of them were powerhouses who had once been on the roll of generals after Wei Li's introduction. It seemed that these powerhouses were not simply lucky to have reached where they were today. You ninth-grade divine generals, go get the Supreme Crystal and prepare to break through. As for Wang Yiping, go ahead and awaken your strength. Hearing Zichen's words, the others were in an uproar. They did not expect it to be like this. After waving his hand to signal the team to disperse, the ninth-grade divine generals stepped forward excitedly, waiting for the Supreme Crystal to be distributed. Chapter 3045. These ninth-grade divine generals had been here for several years. Their lives were precarious, and they had to mine every day in fear. However, it was this kind of work that put their lives on the line that caused them to be unable to gather even one Supreme Crystal. In this world, under the suppression of the natives, resources were too precious. Right now, they were not doing anything. Could they really get any resources? The answer was yes. Su Mengyao was in charge of distributing the resources. She was in charge of this. Yi Qian was in charge of bringing Wang Yiping to the awakening altar to awaken their rule power. These few ninth-grade divine generals each received 2 Supreme Crystals. During this period, they did not need to mine anymore. They only needed to refine the Supreme Crystal until they broke through. Su Mengyao told them that if they had not broken through after refining, they could come to her for more. Many people felt that it was a pity. They hated themselves for not being able to reach the Earth Prime realm, although it was still dangerous for them to mine again. Fortunately, there were strong cultivators guarding them. This greatly reduced the danger. After a few days, the force was back on track. Everything was developing in an orderly manner. On this day, Kaima came to Zichen's hall and said, "Sir is looking for me." "When do the natives come here to get resources?" Zichen asked. "Normally, they come once every half a year," Kaima answered respectfully. "How do they exchange for resources?" "There is no specific amount. It depends on their mood. Sometimes it is more, sometimes it is less. Because we have never been to the city, we do not know the price. In short, it is all kinds of oppression that allows us to barely survive." Zichen nodded and said, "How many mineral veins do we have now?" "A total of 5 mineral veins. They are number 1 to 5. Number 3 is the largest and the most dangerous. Heavenly beasts often go there, causing us great losses," Kaima said. Zichen nodded and said, "Send someone to take me to those mineral veins." Kaima found Bouvier. He used to be the person in charge of recruiting divine generals. After the change in the organization, he was called back and had been staying in the organization ever since. Zichen naturally recognized Bouvier. He was the one who had brought everyone to the Senma faction. "Sir, are you going to investigate the mine?" Bouvier cupped his fists and bowed. "Yes, let's go." This time, Su Mengyao went with Zichen. Bouvier took the two of them to the number 1 lode. "We discovered this vein many years ago. The quality of the crystals mined is not very high, but it is very easy. Above the number 1 mineral vein." Bouvier pointed at the mineral vein below. At this moment, Long Hu was guarding the mineral vein. When he saw Zichen and Su Mengyao, he nodded at them and did not come over. Zichen looked at Su Mengyao and saw a ray of light flying out from her body. It was the spirit-devouring king plant. The spirit-devouring king plant turned into a ray of light and flew down to the mineral vein, disappearing into the hard ground. In terms of sensing spiritual energy, no one in Zichen's team could compare with the spirit-devouring king plant. In the past, it could even sense the mountain spirits and devour them. Bouvier had no idea what Zichen was doing, but he had heard about this plant. It was said that it could even kill the natives, which was quite surprising. After waiting for 15 minutes, the spirit-devouring king plant turned into a ray of light again and disappeared beside Su Mengyao. She did not give any other advice. Zichen said, "Let's go to number 2. The situation in the number 2 mineral vein was better than the number 1 mineral vein, followed by the number 3 mineral vein. The number 3 mineral vein was the largest, and Lei Ting was guarding it. When Zichen arrived, he was fighting with a few heavenly beasts. As soon as the long spear of the 9 extremes weapons appeared, a powerful wave of energy swept across the area, and the battle ended quickly. The divine generals and miners cheered in the distance. In the past, when facing these heavenly beasts, they could only run. If they were unlucky, they would die. This situation would continue until the heavenly beasts left. Now, they finally did not have to run anymore. The spirit-devouring king plant continued to sneak into the mineral vein. This time it took a little longer. They waited for a full hour. After it appeared, the light flowing around it dimmed a little. After it disappeared in front of Su Mengyao, Su Mengyao's expression changed a little. "Next," Zichen said. When they arrived at the 4th mine, Bouvier pointed at the mine below and said, "This is what we obtained from the battle. We originally thought that we would be able to mine even more divine king crystals. But who would have thought that we would be able to mine a piece of soul essence? Back then, the hundreds of people in the mine all died, and that soul essence is also missing. It was a great opportunity to mine a soul essence, but for some ordinary miners it was a great danger." The spirit-devouring king plant continued to sneak in and returned after 15 minutes. Then they went to the number 5 mineral vein. The spirit-devouring king plant also checked it. After that, the 3 of them went back. In the room, Su Mengyao said, "Xiao Ling checked 5 mineral veins. Except for the number 3 one, the others are not very valuable. The number 3 mineral vein is very big, and the area below it is even bigger. It is said that there is something inside that attracts it, but it is also dangerous." "Is it the God King's soul essence?" Zichen asked. Xiao Ling is not sure. After discussing with Su Mengyao, Zichen called Kai Ma. "Sir, what are your orders?" "Send people to the mineral veins except for the number 3 one. Give up those mineral veins and go to the number 3 mineral vein. Call back those who are looking for mineral veins. Let them explore the number 3 mineral vein and open a few more entrances." Hearing Zichen's words, Kaima was very surprised. If that was the case, wouldn't the other mineral veins be wasted? Seeing that Lin Fan had no intention to explain, he took the order and left. After that, there was an uproar. Everyone did not understand Zichen's actions. Many of the miners were reluctant to go to the number 3 mineral vein because it was very dangerous. Fortunately, the captains would follow them. There were a total of 5 captains guarding the mineral veins. It was enough to ensure that they would not be disturbed by the heavenly beasts. As all the miners began to focus on mining the number 3 mineral vein, the mining speed of the vein sped up a lot. In the previous mining tunnels, some better quality ores gradually appeared. Although these ores could not form their own laws, they believed that as long as they continued mining, they would be able to mine a complete supreme crystal. Such a scene made the miners very excited. Moreover, Zi-Chun had set up a point reward system. The more ores they mined every day, the more points they would be given. Later, they would use the points to exchange for a complete supreme crystal. During this period, all the heavenly beasts that came were killed by the 5 captains outside. Without any worries, they were full of enthusiasm. Time passed quickly. Half a year had passed. In this half a year, no one had awakened. "Sir, the aboriginals may come in a few days." This time Kaimar reminded. Zi-Chun nodded. He had not thought about how to deal with the aboriginals. It was impossible to take the initiative to ask for peace. There was bound to be a war between the two sides. "Let's take the initiative to fight." Zi-Chun made up his mind. Chapter 3046. The group of 5 natives set off for the Senma faction according to their agreement. "Matthew, the place we're heading to this time is the place Zi-Chun first went to after coming to this world, right?" one of the natives asked as they moved forward. The native named Matthew nodded and said, "Yes, that's the faction. The leader of the Senma faction told us about it, but we weren't able to kill Zi-Chun at that time. Last time, it was clearly a situation of certain death, but he still managed to escape." "What a pity," said one of the natives, regretfully. Matthew said, "Is it just a pity? Zi-Chun has disappeared for several years. When he reappears, it's definitely time for him to awaken. At that time, he'll be even more dangerous to us. He might even become a disaster for us." "That's not necessarily the case, right? We have a lot of people, but they only have a few dozen." "A few dozen? You know, Zi-Chun didn't awaken. How many of us did he kill in those few years? Once he awakens, his combat strength will only be stronger. So what? We have a lot of resources on our side. Once we send him out, he'll definitely die." As they chatted, they saw the Senma faction in the distance. Looking at the Protoss in the faction, Matthew suddenly frowned. "What's wrong?" One of the natives sensed Matthew's abnormality. "There seems to be something different." "What's different?" "In the past, they were all lifeless, but now they seem to be different." Matthew had a bad feeling in his heart because he had been here many times. Those people were like walking corpses, but now they had souls. This situation indicated that they were full of interest in life again, or that they had rekindled hope. Why was this? Who gave them hope? He shifted his gaze and saw the great hall in the faction. He had been here half a year ago, but this great hall wasn't there. "Call your leader out?" At this time they had already reached the sky above the Senma faction. There was no time to think. Many of the Protoss looked up at the 5 people in the sky. Although they were like walking corpses in the past, they were still respectful when they saw them. However, at that moment, those people's gazes were filled with pity. Matthew had been paying attention to the expressions of these people. After reading the different emotions in their eyes, his face changed as if he had thought of something. Right at this moment, a voice sounded from below. "I am the leader." The voice came from the hall. Soon after, a person walked out. It was a young man. He wore a brand new black robe and had a faint smile on his face. Such a seemingly gentle youth was like a demon in the eyes of the 5 people. Their expressions changed greatly, and they were filled with terror. Subconsciously, they retreated backward, wanting to turn around and escape. "Do you think you can escape?" That young man spoke, a smile still on his face. The 5 of them were pale, and their bodies were trembling, but they didn't dare to move. The Protoss below felt very relieved. The natives used to be so arrogant, but now they were scared half to death in front of their leader, Zi-Chun. Zi-Chun walked in front of the 5 people and said, Do you know me?" The 5 of them nodded at once, but soon shook their heads again. Zichen smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. Now hand over the thing." "What thing?" Matthew asked, his voice trembling. "Superm crystal. Aren't you here to exchange for resources?" Zichen said. "Also, you guys already have some resources on you." "Yeah, just give me your spatial spirit rings." The 5 of them naturally didn't dare to resist. They quickly took out the things and handed them to Zichen. Zichen took them and opened them one by one. Then he frowned and said, "There is only a small amount of superm crystal." "No, that's all," Matthew said in horror, afraid that Zichen would kill them. The other 4 nodded and said that there was nothing left. "There is too little. It's not enough. How about this? The 4 of them are detained. You go back and get the superm crystal to ransom them." Zichen looked at Matthew and said. The other 4's faces changed again. They were terrified and begged for mercy. Zichen stretched out his hand and drew a line in front of him. A circle of energy appeared out of thin air. Zichen looked at the 4 people in the circle and said, "This is called a prison. Now, the 4 of you are my captives. If you want to live, you have to ransom them with resources. You can live in this prison. Once you leave, you will have to bear the consequences." Zichen looked at Matthew and said, "You can go back now." After that, he ignored Matthew and returned to the hall. Matthew, who was outside the circle of energy, was stunned. The 4 people in the circle were terrified. What should we do now? Matthew looked at the 4 through the circle of energy that didn't have the slightest strong fluctuation. One of them squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying and said, "Matthew, whether we can live or not depends on you. Go back and inform the family to bring some superm crystal." The circle of energy didn't fluctuate at all. It was obviously drawn casually, but the 4 didn't dare to step out. In the war initiated by Paramello, nearly 1,000 indigenous people died, including 1st and 2nd grades. To Zichen, who had killed people like scything flax, the lives of the 4 of them were really nothing. Therefore, even though they knew that the circle of energy didn't have a strong resistance, they didn't dare to leave. They could only ask Matthew to go back and get the resources. As for Matthew, who was outside the circle of energy, he was naturally the least afraid compared to everyone in the circle. This was because he could leave without worrying about being killed. After cupping his fists at them, he turned around and left. His speed was getting faster and faster. The divine generals below looked at the indigenous people mockingly. They had been so arrogant before, but now they were scared out of their wits by leader Zichen's casual drawing of a circle. Zichen returned to the hall. Su Mengyao looked at him and asked, "What are you going to do?" "Everything is difficult at the beginning," said Zichen. "This battle is unavoidable, so let's fight." "Should we inform the others to come back?" asked Su Mengyao. "No, their primary target is me, so they will definitely attack me. The development of the forces will continue as usual. We just need to wait for them to come." Matthew was from the Klee family, which was a big family in the Soul clan. In the last battle, the Klee family suffered a great loss. Many Wang Yiping died. Chapter 3047. The Klee family was in an uproar because of Klimitho's words. "What? Matthew, what did you say?" The patriarch of the Klee family walked out and said to Matthew, who was walking towards him, "Master, Zichen is back. He's in the semaphores under our control. All the people I brought with me have been detained. He wants me to ransom them with the superm crystal," Klimitho said in a panic. "What's his strength now?" the master asked. "Huh." Klimitho was stunned. "I didn't notice. He didn't do anything. He just detained the 4 of US and asked me to come back to get the resources." No matter what his strength was, Zichen was a huge threat to the Klee family. Obviously, Matthew's return to get the resources was only an incentive. It was more to tell the natives that he was back. Someone go and inform Paramello of the Paramello family that Zi-chan is back. Let's see how he deals with it. Zi-chan was not just a matter of the Klee family. It was something that all the natives had to face. News of Zi-chan's return spread quickly among the families. The natives, who had just calmed down for a few years, were worried again. The masters of many forces gathered in Paramello's family. Anything related to Zi-chan was a big deal. Looking at the masters, Paramello said, "Zi-chan is obviously provoking us. There's no other way. Let's go find a rank for." A rank for? The others were stunned. If they wanted to find a rank for, why would they need to find him? It's only been a few years. According to our calculations, he can't have awakened his strength. Maybe this is our chance, the master of the Meek family said. Several other patriarchs nodded in agreement with this point of view. They were more familiar with the awakened strength of the Protoss than the Protoss here. Paramello said calmly, "If common sense is useful, can Zi-chan beat us? You should know how many people died in the last battle, right? If he didn't awaken his strength, he would be hiding in some corner. He wouldn't dare to show himself. Now that he has appeared, he must have absolute confidence. Other than rank, for there is no other way." Looking at the awkward expressions on the faces of the family heads, Paramello said, "Don't tell me that your family doesn't have a rank for martial artist. At such a dangerous time, it's not the time to hide your strength and fuss over each other. We think that sending a rank 3 is enough. I believe it's enough to kill that Zi-chan." Another family head said, "That's right. Why don't we send out a rank 3 first?" The other patriarchs gave their suggestions one after another. As for why they were determined not to mention the matter of sending out a rank 4, only they knew in their hearts. But what about our people? The family head of the Klee family had an ugly look on his face. "We still have 4 people who are being held captive. Are we just going to let them die like this?" Paramello said, "Wouldn't it be better to send a rank 4 to rescue him? We're just a small family. How could we have a rank 4? The Klee family's master smiled bitterly. Paramello spread out his hands and said, "Everyone, if none of you are willing to send a rank 4, then I'm sorry, but I have no other choice." "What do you mean? Are you not going to care about this matter anymore? Last time, you were the one who led people to surround and kill him. Now that he's back, are you going to wash your hands of it?" One of the patriarchs said in dissatisfaction, "Paramello, I'll leave this matter to you." An old voice came from outside the door. It was the Paramello family's master. Yes, Paramello nodded in response. Then he looked at the patriarchs of the other forces and said, "Let's make this clear first. If we don't send out a rank for this time, I can't guarantee that we can kill Zi-chan." The other patriarchs nodded. As long as they did not send out a rank 4, everything was negotiable. "What about our people?" the Klee family had asked. "That's up to you." Paramello arranged for the Spirit Eagle to go out and investigate again. Before he could determine the strength of the enemy, he could not make a move. The Klee family's master seemed very helpless. He could only arrange for Matthew to go out again with resources. He could not let his family members be killed. While Matthew was heading to the Senma faction, many Spirit Eagles were flying above his head. Before he reached the Senma faction, the Spirit Eagles had already arrived. They saw the 4 people from the Klee family. They were still standing there, not moving at all these days, letting the wind blow and the sun shine on them. The Spirit Eagles scattered in the air and flew in different directions. Matthew had arrived. When the 4 people saw Matthew, their faces were filled with excitement. "Zi-chan, I've brought the resources," Matthew said to the people in the hall below. Zi-chan walked out of the hall and said with a smile, "Oh, how many did you bring?" Matthew took out a spatial spirit ring, which contained 400 pieces of Suprum crystal. Seeing the Suprum crystal, Zi-chan smiled and said, "Are your people so worthless?" He turned his head to look at the four people and said, "The four of you are only worth 400 pieces of superm crystal." The four people's faces were somewhat unsightly, but they did not dare to say anything. Zichen looked at Matthew and said, "You take the things back. I'll take their lives." The four people's faces turned pale, and they immediately begged for mercy. Matthew said in horror, wait a moment, I'll go back and get the resources." Zichen glanced at Matthew and said coldly, "No need. You stay as well. Someone will report to me." Zichen raised his head to look at the horizon. There were black dots circling in the sky. They were spirit eagles. Matthew helplessly walked into the circle of light. Facing the blaming eyes of his four companions, he could only smile bitterly. His family had made him bring so much superm crystal. He was also very helpless. It seems that you are used to exploiting others. Now, even your lives are like this. Zichen smiled coldly and turned to walk toward the hall. The spirit eagles spread out, covering the entire Senma faction. Then they quickly spread out to investigate everything. Through the spirit eagles, Paramello's face became increasingly unsightly. He saw Zichen's friends and even saw them fight. Naturally, all of them had awakened. He did not see an awakening altar, but he found it difficult to relax. Zichen dared to openly take over a faction. Clearly, he wanted to expand his faction. Under such circumstances, it was impossible that he did not have an awakening altar. It could be said that their current enemy was Zichen, but if they continued to expand, their enemy would be the entire god race. This was the danger of extermination. He turned to look at the family heads and said, "Zichen has begun to expand his faction. Our future enemy is no longer Zichen's group, but the endless god race." When he said this, all the family heads' expressions changed greatly. "Do you know where the altar is? How about we just destroy it?" A family head asked. "The altar has been hidden by them. At present, only his friends can be seen, but not the altar." Chapter 3048. The others all agreed to attack Zichen's friends first. In their words, this was called attacking them one by one. Hearing this, Paramello smiled bitterly and said, "If we kill his friends, have you thought about the consequences?" "They're all enemies. What consequences will we face?" asked one of the patriarchs. "If we kill his friends, then Zichen will have nothing to worry about. Under such circumstances, what do you think he'll do?" Paramello said, "Like infiltrating our city." At these words, everyone's expression changed again. If Zichen really infiltrated their city alone, then what followed would be a nightmare that they would not be able to wake up from. Apart from a select few powerhouses, who else could fight against him? Yes, he's an enemy. We can kill him first. As for his friends, they're not a threat at all, so there's no need to attack them first. Paramello said, "Send out rank 4s. This is a war for the survival of our race." The patriarchs were still hesitating. Although it was only one sentence to send out rank 4s, the implications were enormous. Rank 4s would not appear until it was truly a matter of life and death. "We can send people to investigate first and accurately obtain some clues about Zichen," said another patriarch. The other patriarchs nodded. Seeing this, Paramello did not say anything else. Everyone was no longer the same as they had been a few years ago. Zichen's threat had become even greater. Under such circumstances, all the factions began to think for themselves and were no longer united. He said, "That's fine too. Send people to investigate first. Once we find out the location of the awakening altar, send out rank 3s and destroy them in one fell swoop." The patriarchs finally nodded in agreement with Paramello's words. Paramello sneered in his heart. He had accurately grasped the true state of mind of these patriarchs. "My lord, recently many people have wanted to join us. Some are also trying to find out information about us. Kima came to the main hall and reported to Zi Chen what had happened recently. Now, Nightmare is no longer recruiting. As for finding out information, let them do as they please, Zi Chen said calmly. These Protoss were obviously under the orders of the natives. Zi Chen really did not care. He was waiting for the first battle. If they didn't fight, things would never be resolved. He had already reminded Tyrant and the others to be careful when they went out to hunt beasts and not to stray too far away from their forces. He looked like he didn't care about the others, but in fact, if there was any danger, he could reach them with a single teleport. Zi Chen. Wei Li's voice came from outside the door. He walked in without waiting for Zi Chen's reply. Congratulations on your breakthrough. Zi Chen smiled as he looked at Wei Li, who was now Wang Yiping. Wei Li blushed with shame. When he first met Zi Chen was only a 7th grade Divine General. At that time, he was already a 9th grade Divine General. Now, Zi Chen was already a level 2 king, and he had just broken through to level 1. Compared with Zi Chen, the gap was too big, so there was nothing to congratulate. Why do you have time to look for me? Zi Chen asked. Recently, more and more heavenly beasts have been coming to the 3rd mine. Moreover, after mining at full strength, the quality of the Supreme Crystal is getting higher and higher. I believe that it won't be long before we can mine out the real Supreme Crystal. Every piece of Godly King Crystal had its own set of natural laws. It was of great significance to godly kings. Being able to mine out the real Supreme Crystal should be a good thing for a force. However, Wei Li's expression was very serious. Are you worried about the soul essence? Zi Chen asked. Yes. If this continues, we might be able to dig out the soul essence one day. However, if there is no powerhouse guarding it, the soul essence will escape, and this great opportunity will be wasted. Wei Li said, if the natives' army comes and the soul essence appears, we will definitely miss it. Zi Chen said, don't worry. I know what to do with that mine. That's good. Those forces sent many divine kings to the Senma Force to investigate, or rather, the Nightmare Force. Through this name, the natives could see many problems. The information they received was not much different. There was indeed an awakening altar in the Nightmare Force, and a group of people had already gone to awaken it. However, until now, no one had been able to find out the location of the awakening altar. All the family heads gathered again. Although Paramello was also present, he had lost the absolute commander-in-chief position he had a few years ago. Zi Chen is already a 2nd grade king. His friends are also 2nd grade kings. In this case, we have to send out 3rd grade kings. That's right. Send out some 3rd grade kings and kill them in one fell swoop. Everything will be fine. I believe that if they are surrounded by a group of 3rd grade kings, none of them will be able to escape. These family heads talked one after another, discussing how to attack. After deciding to kill Zi Chen, they looked at Paramello, who had been silent all this while, and said, "What do you think, Paramello?" Paramello nodded and said, "The plan is not bad. If those 3rd grade kings can attack Zi Chen alone, it's not bad. That's right. Let's go all out and kill him in one blow." After the matter was settled, the next step was to take the initiative to attack. The personnel arrangement was a problem. In the end, more than 30 families decided to send one person each. In this way, there would be more than 30 3rd grade kings. They believed that it would not be a problem to kill a mere 2nd grade king, Zi Chen. Zi Chen sat cross-legged in the hall, cultivating. He held a Supreme Crystal in his hand and refined the energy in it. Suddenly he opened his eyes. A cold light flashed in his eyes. 3rd grade kings. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. His figure disappeared from the hall. More than 30 3rd grade kings were flying in this direction. They were silent and had a clear goal. Whoosh! Suddenly, a ray of light appeared in the crowd and turned into Zi Chen's appearance. "You're here for me, right?" Zi Chen looked at them with a faint smile on his face. He was facing a group of third-grade kings alone. There was no trace of nervousness on his face. At first, these third-grade kings were stunned. Then, a hint of joy appeared in their eyes. This was the first time they had seen someone come to their doorstep to die. The craftsmen immediately unfolded their artifact refining domains, enveloping the surroundings. Layers of oppressive power fell on Zichen. Several domains fell on Zichen. Sensing the oppressive aura, Zichen smiled faintly and said, "Not bad. Go to hell." The other third-grade kings surged with killing intent and displayed all kinds of powerful techniques. More than a dozen spirit eagles looked down from the sky, observing the details of the battle. Chapter 3049. Dozens of spirit eagles hovered in the sky, observing the battle below. They were watching from multiple angles, trying not to miss a single detail. Everything the spirit eagles saw would be reflected in a spatial crystal wall in front of everyone. Not only could Paramello see it, but so could the other family heads. This time, they were watching the battle from afar. These third-grade kings had not yet arrived, but they had already alarmed Zichen, which made them very surprised. However, when they saw Zichen appear directly in the crowd and be trapped by the craftsman's artifact, refining domain, all of the family heads breathed a sigh of relief. The Klee family head laughed. He really doesn't know what's good for him. He actually appeared in the crowd. With so many artifact refining domains suppressing him, he can forget about escaping this time. That's right. This kid is too young and too arrogant. Although his senses are sharp, he'll still die if he runs headlong into the encirclement. The other family heads spoke one after another, looking very pleased. Paramello stood in front of the spatial crystal wall, listening to the relaxed laughter behind him. A cold smile appeared on his face. Were these people idiots? Or did they think Zichen was an idiot? If Zichen really was an idiot, would he have started a large-scale war for Zichen alone? In the previous battle, there had been more third-rank kings in the dark. Why hadn't he sent them to surround and kill him? Paramello, who had fought Zichen before, knew very well that Zichen was definitely not an idiot. At the very least, he wasn't what they thought him to be. The fact that Zichen dared to appear this time only proved that he had great confidence in himself and that he had great combat strength. These third-rank kings were most likely going to die today. When they left, Paramello had already expected this outcome. However, he didn't say anything, because even if he did, no one would believe him. He couldn't hear anything from the spatial crystal wall, but he saw that the artifact refining domains were broken. At the same time, an even larger domain spread out, enveloping all of the third-rank kings in the area. The spatial crystal wall in front of him instantly became empty. Everyone had disappeared. The family heads behind him, laughing proudly, also disappeared. What's going on? They all stood up and stared ahead in disbelief. An atmosphere of panic began to spread. Paramello smiled bitterly, and his face turned pale. Zichen's domain was a world. It could be said that it was a world domain. It was extremely large and of extremely high quality. It contained countless types of laws and was known to be perfect. In the past, before he activated his rule power, he could already use it in his world. It was just that he didn't get the recognition of this world's rule power. Now that he had activated the rule power and obtained the recognition of the world rule, the world domain would be activated to the greatest extent. Wang Sanpin's refining domain could no longer suppress this so-called perfect world, even if several domains overlapped. He easily broke through these domains and suppressed them. In an instant, more than 30 third-grade kings were enveloped by his world domain. Standing in the world domain, he was the ruler. He looked at the natives with ugly expressions and said, "Welcome to my world." As his voice fell, the power of rules descended from the sky, forming an extremely oppressive force. These third-grade kings also had the power of rules flowing around their bodies, but they still couldn't get rid of the pressure. Kill him. Everyone looked at each other and saw a touch of fear in each other's eyes, so they all attacked. Chen smiled coldly and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was in front of a third-grade king. He unsheathed the long saber in his hand. Cold light radiated in all directions, and a powerful aura surged. The rule power in this domain seemed to be mobilized in an instant. Countless rule power surged, and a bright and powerful saber light appeared. The saber light slashed toward Wang Sanpin. The pressure of many rule powers greatly affected his speed, causing his opponent's face to change drastically. He was a member of the soldier clan. He took out his weapon to block. With a clang, the weapon was shaken off, and the saber light swept past his body. This was the first strike Chen made after reactivating the rule power. The power he used was the heaven-defying destructive force after the fusion of countless rule powers. Coupled with the perfect world and the 9 extremes weapon, it was normal for a second grade to kill a third grade instantly. Looking at the dead Wang Sanpin, the others' faces changed drastically, and they joined forces to attack Chen. The space where he was covered by countless attacks, and the space began to distort wildly. Chen's figure was also shattered by many energy attacks. Puff! The sound of a weapon slashing through a body sounded from the other side. Chen appeared. Wang Sanpin in front of him had been beheaded. The second third-grade king was killed. Go to hell! Not far from Chen, a third-grade king from the Craftsman clan showed his power. He spread out his domain, clenched a giant hammer in his hand, and smashed it toward Chen. When this domain was close to Chen, it seemed to be blocked by a huge force, so the domain couldn't continue to envelop Chen. Chen unsheathed his saber, and a flash of saber light swept forward. Wang Sanpin from the Craftsman clan, the heavy hammer in his hand flew into the air and dissipated into energy in midair. Below, Wang Sanpin fell down and his vitality was gone. This way of killing in an instant caused a chill to appear in the hearts of all the indigenous people. Their attacks were even fiercer, and various killing moves were used. Several powerful soul beasts madly rushed toward Chen. Chen's body dissipated again. In his own domain world, he had an absolute speed advantage. After using rapid speed, he had an absolute speed advantage. He left behind an afterimage, which was covered by more attacks and then dissipated. Then his real body appeared, passing through the bodies of the third-grade kings, one after another. For Chen, more than 30 third-grade kings were just a matter of dodging dozens of times, and then attacking dozens of times. After regaining the power recognized by this world, he no longer had to worry about his own consumption, because his energy would never be exhausted. Even if his soul was exhausted, his energy would not be. Seeing this battle that was close to a massacre, the other indigenous people were frightened and wanted to escape. But how could they, who were only third-grade kings, have the power to destroy a world? Not long after, the battle ended, and Chen looked at the corpses on the ground indifferently. The spirit-devouring King Grass appeared in the world and began to clean up the battlefield, devouring the energy in their bodies. Whoosh! Chen spread out his domain world and appeared in this space. He looked up at the spirit eagle in the sky, then turned and walked toward the Nightmare faction. Chapter 3050. Chen's gaze terrified Matthew and the other 4. After being trapped for several days, they were now begging for mercy in horror. Earlier, they saw dozens of people coming and then disappearing quickly. Although they didn't know the details, they could guess. You can go. When you go back, each of you will send me 200 pieces of Supreme Crystal. Chen looked at the 5 frightened people. The 5 of them were a little dumbfounded when they heard this. They looked at each other. Who was going to go back to get resources this time? You can all go. Chen waved his hand and said, Don't miss a single piece of superm crystal. When Matthew and the other 4 heard this, they nodded repeatedly. They were extremely grateful, but at the same time they couldn't believe it. They carefully ran out of the circle of light. At this time, Zi-Chen had already flown to the main hall and ignored them. They quickly left. In front of the space crystal wall, all the family heads fell into silence. Seeing those king rank 3 disappear in an instant, they felt a strong sense of uneasiness in their hearts. This feeling of uneasiness lasted until Zi-Chen appeared, and then it turned into fear. Under the attention of the spirit eagle, only Zi-Chen appeared. It had only been a short time. Where did the 30 or so king rank 3 go? They vaguely guessed the outcome, but they couldn't believe it. He has indeed become extremely powerful. Paramello let out a low sigh. This scene had long been expected. What should we do now? The family heads behind all panicked. Ask the rank 4 to come out. Otherwise, what awaits us next time will be destruction, Paramello said. I believe you have seen Zi-Chen's combat strength. He has such combat strength as a rank 2. What about rank 3? Once he reaches rank 3, what awaits us will be destruction. This time, these family heads no longer wavered or kept quiet about the rank 4. They felt the pressure and obviously agreed to send out the rank 4 in their hearts. After all the family heads left, an old man came in. He looked at Paramello and asked, "How was it?" Paramello shook his head and said, "Although their thoughts have wavered, I don't think they will send out the rank 4. We can be united on small matters, but it's hard to be united on something like this. Due to the rules of the world, it was not easy to reach rank 4. Rank 4 martial artists would consume a lot of energy when they fought, and recovery would be very slow. This was also the main reason why a rank 4 could only be used as a foundation and could not casually make a move. However, if a rank 4 was needed, it would be a matter of life and death. When the head of the Klee family returned to his family, the first thing he did was to look for the rank 4 in charge of the family. He had once told Paramello that there was no rank 4 in the family, but that was just a casual remark. If such a large family did not have a rank 4 in charge, who knew how many times they would have been plotted against? Wang Sipin, who was acting as the foundation, was raising fish and planting flowers, living a carefree life. After seeing Master Kelly, he put down the fish food and turned around. They're all dead. They were all killed by Zi-Chen in an extremely short amount of time. Patriarch Kelly said with a dejected expression, "Then what do you mean?" The rank 4 existence asked. Master Kelly shook his head and didn't say anything. This meant that he hadn't made up his mind. What realm is Zi-Chen in now? The rank 4 asked. Rank 2. Patriarch Kelly said, "What if he reaches rank 3? The rank 4 asked again. After he reaches rank 3, he will have the combat power to fight against a rank 4. Maybe he will completely destroy us. When that time comes, no one in this world will be able to stop him." The rank 4 laughed and said, "That's just your guess. Since it's just a guess, it can't be taken seriously. Other than destroying us, there is another possibility that he will leave." Patriarch Kelly's eyes widened. He vaguely guessed what the rank 4 great ancestor meant. If a rank 3 can leave this world, we can do it. The Protoss can do it too. In fact, compared to us, they have to leave even more. This is because our home is here. They are different. They are just passers-by. The rank 4 continued, "You just said that once Zi-Chen reaches rank 3, he will come and destroy us. This possibility is not big. This world needs us. Without us, this world will lack a lot of resources and will not be able to develop in an orderly manner. However, among us, there are not only you and me. We represent all of our races. On the other hand, it is impossible for our races to be destroyed, but it is possible for us to be destroyed. This time there are many forces that did not take action, right? There are many forces that did not come." Patriarch Kelly nodded. This time, They were clearly not as united as last time. Last time, Paramello could mobilize countless experts, but this time was clearly different. At the very least, the royal family of the craftsmen, the Kong family, did not participate this time. Instead, they chose to remain silent. Seeing the change in Patriarch Kelly's expression, Wang Sipin continued, "On one side, there are enemies that can leave at any time. On the other side, there are tigers and wolves lurking around us, waiting to ambush us when we are injured. In this situation, what do you think we should do? Naturally, we should deal with all changes by sticking to the status quo." Patriarch Kelly immediately said. Wang Sipin smiled and said, "Then do you have any other worries?" However, Ziqin has the awakening altar. They will grow stronger very soon. When that time comes, won't we be suppressed or even enslaved? Patriarch Kelly said, "Of course there will be suppression, but it won't be as you imagine. At most, it will be containment. As for enslavement, it will be even more impossible. Even if we don't take the divine race seriously, we will only exploit them. Apart from that, we won't have much contact with them, right? This is our homeland, so we must control it. However, for the divine race, this is just a temporary resting place. Do you think they will spend countless years here to fight for territory with us?" Patriarch Kelly nodded his head as if he didn't fully understand. "I heard that this is a training ground built by the divine race's god. However, we have broken the rules of this training ground. Now, it seems that the divine race had long expected that the situation here would change. Forces like us will face a purge. In this situation, what we need to do is to protect ourselves as much as possible." Wang Sipin waved his hand and said, "The one who is most worried about this matter is not our Kelly family, but the Paramello family. Last time, Paramello was in the limelight, so Ziqin naturally remembered him. This time, even the Kong family temporarily avoided him. Why are they so proactive?" Wang Sipin continued, "When there is no other way, the Paramello family will naturally send out a rank 4. At that time, we can also measure Ziqin's strength. It will be good if he dies, but if he doesn't, he will be equivalent to a second netherworld. The netherworld has existed for so many years. Someone must be cooperating with them." Patriarch Kelly said. Wang Sipin said with a smile, "That's why, when living beside a pack of tigers and wolves, enemies can sometimes become friends. For example, he just happens to have the idea of beating the tigers and driving the wolves away. This?" Patriarch Kelly opened his eyes wide and looked in disbelief at the ancestor who had stayed in this world for the sake of the family and would never leave this world. If we can tolerate the netherworld, why can't we tolerate Ziqin? Chapter 3051. Ziqin was waiting for those powerhouses to show up. In his opinion, there would be a battle this time, and it would be a big one. Last time, the Aborigines mobilized countless powerhouses to surround this area, which took years. This time he was a bigger threat, so the Aborigines would make a bigger move. He didn't know that the Aborigines had grudges against each other, and that the forces were like tigers and wolves. When he didn't pose a big threat, those forces could send people out. No matter how many rank 1 and rank 2 died, as long as the rank 3 and rank 4 didn't show up, their foundation would be stable. Under such circumstances, they would be more than happy to send people out to kill Ziqin. However, the current situation was different. Ziqin had become stronger, so without an absolute ally, no one would be willing to take the risk of crippling their own forces and letting other forces swallow them up. This kind of annexation of clans had happened many times in the long river of history. Before the powerhouses arrived, Ziqin received the Supreme Crystal from the 5 Wang Yiping first. 200 pieces per person, 1,000 pieces in total, not one piece less. It was Matthew who came. After delivering the Supreme Crystal, he bid farewell and left. There was no more communication between the two sides. After the last farewell, Paramello didn't receive any reply from the other forces, which made him extremely angry. However, Zi-chan must die, so under such circumstances, they could only send out their own rank for. Paramello hadn't fought since he became a rank for many years ago. Rank, for like him, had paid a huge price to break through. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't fight. His role was more of a deterrent. Over the years, many small forces had been cultivating rank 4, but few of them succeeded. However, once they succeeded, it proved that the force had an indestructible foundation. Only then could they expand. Otherwise, they would always be in a state of self-preservation. Paramello arrived outside the Nightmare Force. He deliberately restrained his aura and went to check out the Nightmare Force. Swoosh! A ray of light appeared in front of him, blocking his way. Zi-chan looked at the aborigines in front of him and frowned. Rank 4. He couldn't sense any powerful aura from the other party, but he felt a sense of danger, as if he had seen the netherworld. You're Zi-chan. Parabili looked at Zi-chan in front of him. That's right. It's me. Zi-chan nodded. Light swirled around his body. He was on high alert. That would be great. Parabili said as he rushed towards Zi-chan. He still did not release his aura, but his speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he was beside Zi-chan. In the next moment, he released his aura like an erupting mountain torrent and punched towards Zi-chan's face. In the face of this punch, Zi-chan did not dodge. Instead, he took a step forward, and light circulated around his body. The power of the lightning body went berserk and surged into his fist. At the same time, the yin and yang forces also converged and covered the surface of his fist. At this moment, Zi-chan used his most powerful strength. With a loud bang, the two fists fiercely collided. The surrounding space twisted crazily, and an extremely powerful fluctuation spread out. In the place where they fought, Zi-chan and rank 4 disappeared at the same time. In the next moment, the two of them appeared hundreds of feet away. They were hundreds of feet apart. The light on Zi-chan's body was still shining, but his face was slightly pale. He looked ahead calmly. Parabili's mountain-like aura had been restrained, and he had returned to normal. He said, "You're very strong." Zi-chan also said, "Your strength is average." As soon as he finished speaking, a long saber appeared in his hand. In the next moment, the long saber was unsheathed. From hundreds of feet away, Zi-chan slashed down with his saber. A ray of light like a waterfall shot out from the tip of the saber, shining with the light of yin and yang, toward Parabili. A faint smile appeared at the corner of Parabili's mouth. He wanted to dodge. This saber was very strong, but its speed was not very fast. In the eyes of a king rank, for this was nothing. But in the next moment, the smile on his face disappeared, and his expression changed slightly. The speed of the falling blade instantly increased, and at the same time, the light blade seemed to have become incomparably heavy, as if it had turned into a huge mountain and was falling on his head, affecting his speed. The saber light naturally did not turn into a mountain. This weight came from the ancestral steel, and this pressure also came from the ancestral steel. Parabili's restrained aura burst out again. This time, a long sword appeared in his hand. The sword released a terrifying aura and collided with the saber. Boom! There was a loud tremor in the sky, and an indescribably powerful fluctuation spread out. The roar spread far and wide, attracting the attention of the Nightmare faction. Many of the Protoss rose into the air and watched the battle in front of them from afar. They did not dare to get close because the aura released by Leader Zi-chan was very terrifying, and the indigenous people who could fight with Leader Zi-chan were certainly not weak. Su Mengyao and the others appeared in the distance. They saw the battle in front of them and could naturally guess the strength of their opponents. "Sister, will Zi-chan be okay?" Lin Shui asked worriedly. "He has not used his strongest world domain, so he should not be in danger for the time being. That rank 4 has been restraining his aura. There seems to be something wrong." Su Mengyao stared ahead and said, Parabili from the soldier tribe used his spiritual weapon to block the sword. He restrained his aura again, leaving only a part of it to neutralize the aftermath. At this time, he looked at the indifferent Zi-Chen in front of him, and his expression became serious. The previous 2 attacks, in his perception, were not a confrontation with a rank 2. It was clearly a battle with someone of the same level, and a very difficult opponent. Looking at Parabili, Zi-Chen sheathed his saber and rushed forward again. This time he clenched his fist, and the power of the thunder body surged again. At the same time, the power of the yin-yang destruction rule appeared and gathered on the surface of his fist. This punch looked the same as before, but only Zi-Chen knew that although it was the same punch, the power contained in this punch was different. Most importantly, this punch was a technique. Thunder explosion. The surface of the thunder explosion was shrouded in the power of yin-yang, which happened to be good at explosive power. Parabili obviously sensed this scene. Before Zi-Chen could get close, his rank 4 aura fully erupted. This time, the void was distorted and a more terrifying pressure appeared. In this pressure, there was even a strong pressure of rules. This pressure affected Zi-Chen's speed, and it even affected his attacks. However, in an instant, Zi-Chen dispelled it. He came in front of Wang Sipin and punched him in the face. Chapter 3052. Zi-Chen's punch did not hit Parabili's head. It was blocked halfway by a long sword. That was the life weapon of a rank 4 king, which carried his strongest power. When the fist met the weapon, the power contained in it exploded. This was Thunderblast, which was good at energy explosion. First, the power of yin and yang exploded, forming a strong destructive wave. Then, the thunder body exploded, causing the destructive wave to become even stronger. Parabili's body was immediately enveloped by the destructive energy. Then, the energy kept spreading. During this period, there were continuous roars and countless thunderbolts raging. The clouds in the sky were instantly torn apart by this wave, revealing many black spots. Those black spots were the spiritual eagles. At this moment, many forces were paying attention to this battle. The violent energy gradually dissipated, and Parabili's body appeared. At this moment, his body was covered with wounds, and his hair was disheveled. He looked very miserable. He stared at Zi-Chen in front of him with cold eyes. There was a hint of hatred in his voice. "You're courting death." He no longer suppressed his aura. In an instant, it exploded, and the world lost its color. Zi-Chen felt a terrifying pressure. From this pressure, he also felt a sense of threat. His expression did not change. He was still indifferent as he took a step forward. The power of yin and yang appeared around him, each occupying half of his body. It cast a strange light on his face. At the same time, an extremely powerful oppressive might surged out from his body. "You're going to die." Parabili's voice was cold, and his face was full of anger. He was injured, and injured by a rank 2 at that. This was the main reason for his anger. Roar! Suddenly, an eagle's cry came from the sky. The sound was extremely sharp, and there was even a faint sound wave. Parabili, whose face was full of anger, showed a look of unwillingness when he heard the cry of the eagle. His body released a brilliant light, and his figure disappeared from the spot. Zi-Chen frowned and looked at the disappearing Wang Sipin. Then he looked up at the sky and saw that the black spots were moving quickly, as if they were going far away. He snorted and turned to walk toward the nightmare forces. Only one person, Su Mengyao, stepped forward and asked, "Yes." Zi-Chen nodded and said, "It should be just a preliminary test. However, through this battle, I've also gained some understanding of rank 4. It's not necessarily impossible to win. Did you notice that there seems to be something wrong with the rank 4? Su Mengyao said, "He cherishes his energy and doesn't want to waste any of it. Only when he is infuriated will he unleash all his energy, without caring about the consumption. Ziqin had also noticed this, but he had previously thought that the other party was being arrogant, so he did not suspect anything. Hearing Su Mingyao's words, he recalled what the leader of the Netherworld had once said. It seemed that a rank 4 expert would only appear in times of absolute danger. Under normal circumstances, they would not appear. Could it be that there was a deeper meaning in this? The spirit eagles in the sky came from many forces. Since Ziqian was a threat, they naturally wouldn't give up on monitoring him. Therefore, many forces were watching the battle between Parabili and Ziqin. The rank 2 Ziqin was not at a disadvantage even when fighting rank for Parabili. Such powerful combat strength was too great a threat to them. Logically speaking, this kind of threat should be enough to unite them and face the outside world together. However, they did not. At this time, many forces were thinking about how to protect themselves. If anyone comes to find me, tell them that I've been seriously ill recently and can't get out of bed. The Klee family master instructed the steward. After that, he returned to his room and began to cultivate in seclusion. Ziqin displayed powerful combat strength comparable to a rank 4. At this time, they could not afford to make a move. In fact, if their family's great ancestor was injured in the battle with Ziqin today, the other forces would definitely be eager to make a move. Just as the rank for great ancestor said, Ziqian was an outsider after all. It was impossible for him to destroy the natives. Once he left them, this world would collapse due to the lack of resources to use. However, it was different for the other forces. They would really destroy the enemy forces. Even at this time, all the forces could see that when it was time to unite, no one dared to play tricks behind their backs. However, no one dared to try because this involved the foundation of a family for countless years. They dared not risk it casually and question whether the other forces were trustworthy. Moreover, they were small families. They did not care about the loss of some resources. The ones who really cared were the big families, such as the Kong family of the craftsmen and the Perry family. In the face of such a situation, the Kong family did not express their stance. It was even more impossible for them to make a move. After that, the Perry family's invitations were rejected by many of the family masters. Some said that they were seriously ill. Some said that they were out of town. In short, there were various reasons why they did not appear. This made Paramello extremely angry. At this time, if everyone worked together, they would definitely be able to kill Ziqin. However, at this time he had no one to use. Of course, everyone had their own selfish motives. It was also impossible for him to allow both rank 4s in his family to go, let alone the few rank 4s that he could dispatch. Perhaps in his heart, there was still uncertainty. He was worried that those rank 4 would not return and that the foundation of the Perry family would be shaken. On the second day of the battle with the rank 4, rank 2, who claimed to be from the underworld, sent a message to Ziqin. A rank 4 had already violated the rules of this world. They would consume a lot of energy and recover very slowly. This news was undoubtedly important to Ziqin. When he fought with the rank 4 in the future, he only needed to consume his energy continuously. Currently, he was the least afraid of consuming his energy. This made him even more confident in fighting against the rank 4. After that, Ziqin stayed in the Nightmare Force, waiting for the arrival of the rank 4. At this time, he was still unaware that there was a problem with the alliance between the Aborigines. However, before the rank 4 arrived, something happened in the number 3 mine. Ziqin saw the signal that soared into the sky. It was very urgent, so he left without hesitation. He performed the world teleportation. His speed was extremely fast. He immediately arrived in the sky above the number 3 mine. In the number 3 mine, it was quiet. There was nothing unusual. However, outside the mineral vein, a terrifying battle broke out. Looking at the existence that was fighting with Longhu and the others, Ziqian's pupils could not help but shrink. It's those black ants from before. When he first came to this world, he encountered a group of black ants. Not only were they intelligent, but they were also very numerous. Their combat strength was very strong. Wherever they passed, they could even destroy a force. He did not expect that these black ants would come to the number 3 mine this time. Now he could already kill the black ants. However, there were too many of them. It was almost impossible to kill them all. Their attacks are orderly. They form an encirclement and attack everyone one by one. There seems to be a problem. Chapter 3053. Zi Chen looked at the black ants that were fighting below him. Their attacks were orderly and they seemed to be surrounding him. Those who died after being sent flying were excluded. Those who were injured retreated regardless of the severity of their injuries. They no longer participated in the battle. At the same time, the black ants at the periphery continued to charge forward. Their attacks were very powerful. Fortunately, the 5 people below had awakened their powers. However, if this continued, they would not be able to hold on for long. Zi Chen looked at Su Mengyao and said, "What do you mean?" "There must be an ant king." Su Mengyao said with certainty. Moreover, it must be an extremely intelligent ant king. Zi Chen understood the real meaning in Su Mengyao's words. His expression changed. "It would be great if I could get it." Basically, any intelligent life could be tamed. Zi Chen wanted to give it a try. He dove down and landed on the battlefield. "All of you back off. Let's see who's commanding those black ants." Zi Chen transmitted his voice. He wanted to find the ant king in the battle. Long Hu and the other 4 immediately soared into the sky when they heard that. They wanted to break away from the battle. However, those black ants immediately flew up and chased after them. Boom! The energy in Zi Chen's body went berserk. He launched his attacks at the black ants in the sky and sent them flying. At that moment, there were spiritual eagles that turned into black dots watching the battle in the sky. Meanwhile, there were more black dots flying towards them from other places. They arrived in the sky and watched the battle below. Obviously, the natives were watching the battle below through the spiritual eagles. It's the dark heavenly ants. The leaders of the forces who were watching the battle immediately recognized the black ants below. Their expressions changed. In this world, the natives did not have many natural enemies. They were not afraid of any opponents in a one-on-one battle. However, the dark heavenly ants were different. They lived in groups, and there were many of them. The natives were not afraid of one of them. However, when a large group of them appeared, even they would be terrified. What a pity! If they were there now, they might be able to kill Zi Chen with the help of those dark heavenly ants. Some of the family heads said as they felt that it was a pity. Under their observation, Zi Chen charged into the swarm of dark heavenly ants and stopped all of them at the same time. Is he going to deal with a group of dark heavenly ants alone? That's too careless of him. Paramello, who was also watching the scene, showed a disdainful smile. He knew very well how powerful the dark heavenly ants were. Even the craftsmen, who possessed the craftsman domain, would not dare to underestimate them. Energy churned as powerful shockwaves spread out in all directions. Many dark heavenly ants were sent flying. They weren't injured. After they were sent flying, they continued forward. During this time, countless dark heavenly ants pounced on Zi Chen. At this time, these natives were using the vision of the spirit eagles to look down from the sky. The ground below had turned pure black. This was also the origin of the dark heavenly ants. When they appeared, it was as if darkness had descended. The energy on Zi Chen's body was still vibrating. Golden light flashed as more dark heavenly ants were sent flying. These flying sky ants did not die. Not even one was left. All the family masters, including Paramello, felt strange. With Zi Chen's powerful combat strength, he shouldn't be so weak. His friends could kill these dark heavenly ants, let alone him. However, they quickly guessed Zi Chen's intentions, and their expressions changed one after another. Paramello exclaimed, "This guy, don't tell me he's trying to subdue these dark heavenly ants." In this area, the natives had an absolute advantage. It could even be said that there were no secrets in this world for the natives. They knew how powerful the dark heavenly ants were. Naturally, they had thought of subduing them. Not to mention Zichen, who was a grade 2, many grade 3 among the natives had tried to subdue them. They even teamed up to try. These sky ants had powerful attacks. Even if they subdued dozens of them, it was still very impressive. There were even grade for experts who tried to subdue them. However, none of them succeeded. Everyone left in high spirits and returned in a sorry state. There were even some who stayed there forever. After countless failures, they knew that it was impossible to subdue these dark heavenly ants. It was because they couldn't find the Ant King. At the same time, they suspected that there might be an Ant Queen behind the Ant King. As time passed, the dark heavenly ants became an existence that they would avoid whenever they saw them. In these years, too many divine tribe forces had been destroyed by the dark heavenly ants. Today, when they saw someone trying to subdue these sky ants again, they were shocked and amused. At the same time, they were looking forward to Zichen being killed by these dark heavenly ants because of his rash action. These dark heavenly ants were constantly sent flying and then continued to charge forward. Under the situation where Zichen wasn't killing them, they didn't consume any energy. They could be said to be endless. After a quarter of an hour, the sky suddenly darkened. Then, countless dark heavenly ants appeared. They were like dark clouds descending from the sky and shrouding the land. Soon, the spiritual eagle couldn't see anything. It could only see the dark heavenly ants. They covered the sky and flew towards Zichen. All the family heads who were watching the battle were extremely shocked. These were the dark heavenly ants. If they were to encounter such an encirclement, they would definitely die. What about Zichen? Just when they were looking forward to it, the dark heavenly canopy disappeared from the spiritual eagle's sight. A domain space appeared around Zichen. When the dark heavenly ants reached Zichen's side, they were subdued by the domain space. It's the same domain space as the craftsman tribe. Haha, this time, Zichen will definitely die. Seeing such a scene, the masters of these forces were stunned at first. Then their faces revealed hearty laughter. The craftsman tribe had the weapon refining domain. Therefore, they tried the most in the past. However, all those who tried to subdue the dark heavenly ants into their domain died. It was said that the dark heavenly ants could devour domains. Among them, there was a rank 4 expert who barely managed to survive. However, without his domain, he was completely crippled. Therefore, the foundation of a family head was forced to enter another layer, which caused the family head to suffer a great loss. Now, Zichen had taken the same path. Even if he didn't die, he would lose half of his life. Chapter 3054. After guessing that there might be an ant king among the black ants, Zichen wanted to subdue the other party. Next, since these black ants were all his subordinates, Zichen couldn't bear to kill any of them. He just used his energy to constantly shake them and send them flying. During this time, his spiritual senses enveloped the surroundings and probed the black ants. He wanted to find out who the real Ant King was. However, after 15 minutes, Zichen still couldn't find it. All the black ants were the same. He couldn't see any abnormalities. In fact, Zichen suspected that the Ant King might not be among these black ants, but hiding in a certain space. At this moment, the sky suddenly darkened. More black ants appeared, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. Countless black ants rushed toward him. Under such circumstances, Zichen couldn't send them flying again, so he chose to take them into his world. His world had perfect laws, so he could still sense them. His world domain was activated, and these black ants would disappear when they flew in front of him. Zichen didn't know that because of his actions, the forces that had been watching previously were now preparing to surround and annihilate him. He discovered an interesting phenomenon. After these black ants came to his world, they seemed to have become more energetic and aggressive. They began to devour everything in sight. In the blink of an eye, a spirit mountain disappeared, and a river formed entirely of spirit water dried up. Such a scene made Zichen feel a little strange, but he didn't panic because his world was infinitely big and perfect. There were countless laws that could be used. With a thought, these black ants were brought to an empty space. The black ants that appeared here began to devour the power of space around them. Zichen smiled, and the space changed again. Countless laws descended from the sky and landed on their bodies. All the black ants seemed to have been immobilized and couldn't move. More black ants entered his world and were suppressed by the laws. During this time, Zichen was investigating the differences between these black ants. There didn't seem to be any difference. Their eyes were black without any white. They didn't look like intelligent life forms. Facing the suppression of the rules, they remained motionless. In the outside world, Zichen looked at the black mass of ants, and his expression changed. He transmitted his voice. Mengyao, let the spirit-devouring king grass go underground and see if the ant king is hiding there. A beam of light flew out from Su Mingyao's side. The spirit-devouring king grass, which had grown its second leaf, turned into a beam of light and dived into the ground. At the same time, Zichen's eyes also emitted a bright light as he looked around to see if there was anything hidden in the space. Everyone had seen Longhu's signal, so they hurried back. Zhang Haoyan was one of them. At this moment, he was standing in the distance and coldly looking over. Check if there are any hidden spaces around us. I suspect that the Ant King is hiding in one. While Zichen was transmitting his voice to Zhang Haoyan, he also shouted at the crazy monk, "Don't come over!" The originally excited monk stopped when he heard this. He looked at Zichen in confusion and said, "I'm here to help you." "I don't need your help." "Stand further away," Zichen said again. The monk could already tell what Zichen was doing. He had no choice but to back off, but he was unwilling to do so. Last time, he was put in a difficult position by the black ants. This time, he wanted to teach them a lesson after comprehending the power, so he could redeem himself from the humiliation. 15 minutes later, most of the black ants were taken away by Zichen's world. However, there were still more black ants not far away. At this moment, the spirit eagle in the sky had transmitted everything it had seen. The patriarchs, who had been extremely excited, were all dumbfounded when they saw that Zichen was still unharmed. Why isn't he dead yet? Why is this happening? The dark heavenly ants can devour the domain. Why isn't he weakened yet? Many of the clans were discussing the same thing. Something is indeed wrong. Paramello's face was ghastly pale. He had initially guessed that Zichen would definitely die after he started using the domain. Just as they were extremely surprised as to why Zichen was still alive, something suddenly flew out from outside those dark heavenly ants. It was a plant that looked like a small grass with only 2 leaves. At the moment, a dark heavenly ant was wrapped around the 2 leaves. The dark heavenly ant was smaller in size and was obviously different from the other dark heavenly ants. The moment they saw the sky ant, the patriarchs of those forces all widened their eyes in disbelief. Clearly, it was the Ant King that they had never found. They were certain that it was the Ant King because all the dark heavenly ants that had gone to besiege Zichen turned back and flew towards the Ant King in a frenzy when the grass brought the dark heavenly ant out. Whoosh! Before they could reach the Ant King, Zichen's domain world was fully activated and devoured all the dark heavenly ants. In the blink of an eye, the dark heavenly ants disappeared along with the Ant King and Zichen. Apart from Zichen's friends and the deity race miners in the distance, the spiritual eagle could see nothing else. All the family heads stared at the scene in front of them in disbelief. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Why did it turn out like this? Didn't the domain world collapse and get devoured by the domain world? They were previously agitated, but they no longer mentioned attacking Zichen. Zichen entered the domain world and trapped the Ant King in a separate world. The soul-devouring king grass was still wrapped around the ant king. After Zichen arrived, the soul-devouring king grass released the ant king. The ant king stared at Zichen and did not make any movements. However, in Zichen's domain world perception, a strange power spread out and his domain world law fluctuated. It's useless. Zichen looked at the ant king and said, I'll give you two choices. One is to submit to me, and the other is to die. The ant king did not respond. Instead, it charged toward Zichen. Zichen waved his hand, and a heaven-defying domain world law power appeared from his palm and landed on the ant king. Bang! The ant king was sent flying. After being sent flying, the ant king emitted a strange fluctuation again, as if it was calling for its underlings. However, with the domain world law isolating it, its voice could not be transmitted. Even if it could be transmitted, those black ants would not be able to move. The black ant king was still struggling while Zichen stood there and looked at it quietly. The ant king attacked Zichen. However, as soon as it reached Zichen, a domain world barrier appeared and blocked its body. It was sent flying by a strong vibration. At this moment, the ant king was trapped in an independent space, and Zichen allowed it to rampage around. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.